right, here we go again, Wednesday afternoon, and that means it's time to talk some hoops. Locks before lock, presented by Odd Chopper, is upon us. It's always 11 games. Every Wednesday, I say the same thing. We're going rapid fire, and that doesn't change today. I am Ben Rasa. I am joined, as I always am, by Matt Savoca. Sir, we got 11. The Knicks are on the slate. A lot to talk about. It's that time of the year with the NBA. So much going on. Are you excited to dive in?
I am excited to dive in. I would say too much going on. It's just one of those times in the sports world where, like, the NBA teams that are getting ready for the playoffs are resting people for certain reasons, and then teams are injured into oblivion, and then you got 11 games on the slate, and we only got 27 or so minutes to cover it all. Excited, to say the least, but we got to get going here. Let's roll.
Let's do it, chat. It's good to see you guys. I know you're ready. Dave in chat, amongst many others, doing some things, hitting some bets, and that's what we're going to try to do today. So let's get things started with the Nuggets, 9.5-point favorites in Indiana, 235.5. One of the big, there's 11 games. There's not that many lopsided spreads. This is one of them, though. So to get things started, what are you looking at to get your card started on this 11-game slate?
How about Monty Morris under 3.5 rebounds? From a value perspective, really looking like one of the best value bets we can get here. In the last month, Morris has been at 12.3 points, 4.9 assists, and most importantly, 3.2 rebounds per game at around 29 minutes per game. He's at the under on this bet in 67%, 2/3 of his games over the last month. Nothing to take me off the base right here. Indiana is 28th in defensive rating, 27th in net rating. Okay, so it's a decent matchup. We already think Denver is going to smoke them here, but we got him projected for just 27 minutes, a little bit less than his average over the last few months. So I'm leaning towards the under here. So are the Awesemo projections. An expected win rate north of 75% to start us off.
Yeah, this game is filled with unders if you're looking to short some of the players. Buddy Hield comes up really across the board. His 3-point prop, if you go under 3.5, you're going to get plus money on that, which I found pretty interesting. Plus 115. Obviously, if he gets going, the volume's there. He's going to probably hit 4 or more, but you are getting plus money there, and we do have that as a good value. You mentioned the lopsided spread. I'm not looking to lay near 10 points on the road, but I'm certainly not taking the points either with the Pacers. It's a straight pass for me.
It's the second best expected spread bet we have in the Awesemo Sports betting model. It's still too razor thin for me. We have an expected win rate about 55%. It's at minus 105, so the implied probability is a coin flip as well. Technically, there's value there, but we're talking about low probability outcomes I don't need to chase.
I would agree. Not much there. I will say when you go to Odd Chopper and you're sorting and you see all the best values are all unders, it is a good opportunity to make a same game parlay if you want to short Buddy Hield. You talked about Morris, Halliburton as well. I think you have options there if you want to do that, and you could even take the under in the game if you wanted to add that in. Keeping it going, Dallas fresh off a biblical beatdown last night of the helpless Lakers, 1.5-point spread here in Cleveland. This will be much more competitive, 214 total. So talk to me about Dallas. Talk to me about Cleveland. This is a toss-up game. We've got Luka obviously playing fantastic. Are you looking to him? Or are you looking elsewhere?
Well, I think the first part here is we actually, with all the injuries going on in this mega slate, we actually have a bit of clarity in this game. For Cleveland, we already know it's no Rondo, no Wade, no Mobley, and obviously no Jared Allen still. For Dallas, we only had Frank Ntilikina as a game time decision. No Dinwiddie, no Burke, no Brown. So I really think we got to start by talking about some of these Kevin Love overs. I mean, in terms of expected ROI, these are some of the we have 2 overs for Love here as some of our highest value bets on the board. Over 2.5 3-pointers, over 0.5 steals. I also really like Luka over 3.5 3-pointers. I was surprised to see us with a expected win rate pretty high on that. Now, here's another one. I think we have enough on this one where we could even do a same-game parlay because I really like Reggie Bullock over 3.5 rebounds as well. An expected win rate of 2/3, 67%. Each individual bet I just listed has an expected ROI north of 25% and an expected win rate north of 60%. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, Kevin Love has been an interesting, just taking a small sample size here. The minutes were bouncing all over the place. The Chicago game is looking maybe like just an outlier where he played 17 minutes. He bounced back in a big way against Orlando. If he's getting 30 plus minutes, he's going to crush all these props at these lines. So I totally get it there. Luka, the 3-point prop, has been one of the premium bets in our premium betting package the last couple nights. He's gone over this number in 4 or 5. The volume is there. They're playing great. He only played 30 minutes last night in a low competitive game. So I'm absolutely with you there. And I will say, as I always do, if you are looking to get into the premium betting, you can get in there with the description, click it, join it. The Reggie Bullock one that you mentioned is part of it tonight, giving people a little sneak peek behind the glass. That is on the card in the premium Discord. So I am with you there. If I had to bet the game, I would bet Dallas, but I am not going to. I think it's a pass for me. Spread feels about right. Close, competitive game.
Completely agree here. I don't see any value here on the money line or spread or even the total, honestly.
Orlando, 3-point dogs in Washington, 219 total. Not the most glamorous game, but from the prop world, that doesn't really matter. You've got Wagner, you've got Hampton. Okay, there's a million guys that we can go to. Corey Kispert has been on the prop card a little bit. What are you looking at in what is probably not the premier game on the slate?
Yeah, this is almost a pass for me, to be honest. It is kind of interesting that if we're looking at point spread bets and we're just lining up that, we honestly don't see as much value on point spread bets as we do as individual prop line bets. But this Washington -3 bet is actually the highest expected ROI point spread bet we have on the board tonight. Not a ton of value there, -110. So it still implies like it's a coin flip bet. We have it closer to 60% in our expected win rate. Nothing's really sticking out to me otherwise here. It's just not an exciting game, especially on an 11-game slate. I want to put my attention elsewhere.
Yeah, so Corey Kispert, his rebounding prop, they've bumped it. It's been sitting, it's been bouncing around. It's at 2.5 now, and they're just juicing it massively at -182. Like our projections, I think he's going to comfortably go over that, but you're not evaluating is he going to go over that. You're evaluating is he going to go over that more than the break even on a -182 bet. And that's a pretty lofty number. So can you add that on? Yeah, sure. I think that you can. I do think you'll cash that ticket, but you are laying major juice there. You mentioned that there is some potential value actually on the spread. And if you go to Odd Chopper, you can get 3.5 on the Magic. You can only lay 3 with the Wizards. So if you are betting this game, make sure to get the right number on your preferred team. Nothing from the total. Can we mercifully send that game to the dust and move on here?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you, God. This is a good one. The Heat, the Celtics, who are just playing absolutely phenomenal basketball, 213.5. Tatum, Brown. It looks like these guys are going to be on the court. You'll get clarity. Of course, we'll have you covered leading up to lock. But talk to me about this big time, could be a playoff preview.
Yeah, I hope so at some point, and you hope that both teams are healthy, right? Tough break for the Celtics with Robert Williams. If they can make it to, it looks like round 2 of the NBA playoffs, they could get Robert Williams back. But you got to replace 9.7 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 2 assists per game and 29 minutes at the at a big man position. That's tough to do in the NBA. As you mentioned, Brown and Tatum expected to play here, but I'm looking at a player who's probably going to have to step up. Grant Williams, under 4.5 rebounds. The minutes are going to be there, but still, Miami's 8th in the NBA in rebound percentage, top 10 in defensive rating, and above average in net rating as well. So the minutes are going to be there for Grant Williams, but we have him in terms of median projections well under in terms of a rebounding prop line. I really think this is one of the easier bets on the board. Expected win rate about 60% and an expected ROI of 23%, and you're getting plus money, plus 114 last I saw.
That's something we talk about every time we do this show. When you have props that are plus money and the raw projection is also going over the number, obviously that's something that you want to identify and look at, and you do have that there. You don't even need to cash that 50% of the time to be profitable, and that's a very enticing thing. Anything with the peripherals, like a guy like Peyton Pritchard, PJ Tucker, any of those guys stood out. For me, they're not going to make the card. I'd rather attack some of the more premier players.
Yeah, I honestly have not looked there on this mega slate, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, again, and that is the one advantage we always talk about. On the DFS slate, you don't have the luxury of saying, I'm just not going to consider this guy and no one else can play him either. It doesn't work like that. With betting, you can say, you know what? I'm not going to look at this guy and I'll leave him off the card. And you're absolutely able to do that. Chat, really like the Al Horford props. That's been a guy that's been prevalent on prop cards all year. 3-pointer prop, we have about a coin flip to go over 1.5 threes, but you're getting plus 176. Aggressive prop, no doubt, low cash probability relative to what you're doing. But if you cash it, you're getting near 2-1. I think that's worthy of a splash if you're making a large card tonight.
I think that's fun, especially when we're talking about the concept of somebody in the front court of Boston needing to step up, take bigger minutes. Maybe Al Horford does it by having a larger role on the outside.
Yeah, again, there's opportunities, and plus 176, you don't have to cash that nearly as often as some of these other props long term to really have some good expected value. The Timberwolves and the Raptors, 2.5 point spread here. Toronto is favorite at home, 229.5. This is just a good game. It should be competitive, pretty healthy total. There's a lot of ways that we can go. Gary Trent is the guy that always comes up. Talk to me about Edwards, Towns. The floor is yours.
Yeah, when I was looking at this, the Edwards over 1.5 steals at plus money again at plus 170, sort of in the trust the math zone in terms of expected win rate. He's been at right around 1.5 steals per game and about 0.05 steals per minute. So extrapolate that using our minutes projection, and suddenly the over is looking pretty enticing here. If I'm looking at a more traditional bet, like I really like Pascal Siakam over 4.5 assists. That really piques my interest. Second highest expected ROI assist bet I was seeing when I was looking, and over in about half of his games over the last month. And most importantly, we got him at this at 39 minutes nearly in our projections. And so that's helping him get to the over. An expected ROI of 24% and an expected win rate of 68% on that Siakam bet.
Yeah, some of the ones, these steals props, not something that I rarely have bet, but OddsShopper's identified them as potential values, and there's a lot of opportunities, the 0.5s, the 1.5s. You can really attack them, and the projections and the tools on OddsShopper do a great job of doing just that. I will give a lean in this game, on OddsShopper. It's 2.5 everywhere, no matter what site you look. You can find minus 106. On one of the books to go there. I would lay the points. I think Toronto will handle them at home. Like most teams, Minnesota's much stronger when they're at home. And I think this is a pretty good spot. You mentioned Siakam. I think you have a pretty effective game tonight. I'll call for the Raptors to cover this number. Nothing crazy, but I think that's one of my favorite sides on this 11-game slate. All right.
I like it.
Oh, come on in. Join me, Team Raptors. People in chat are knowing. I know we don't have too much time to tangent, but you are sporting the pinstripe hat. Are you excited for baseball?
I am excited that the owners and the players finally got their act together. To be honest, I really thought for a minute we wouldn't have it. And so I'm just stoked that I'm just stoked for baseball at this point. I don't care if we win. Of course I care if we win money. I'm getting excited. I'll admit it.
Yeah, I only care about that. I don't like baseball, but if there's money to be made,
that's what I was
betting it. And we will have you covered here. We'll have you covered in Discord. If you're hopping in for the first time, you're checking us out, just getting an appetizer before we turn it over to the deeper dive and live before lock. You want to show support for the show? Easiest way, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I said this on my last show. We're at 74.9 thousand subscribers. We might hit 75K during this show. Maybe we can do it. Maybe we won't. I have no idea. But if you hit subscribe, you could be the lucky one. You get absolutely nothing for doing it. But it would be kind of cool if it flips during the show. We'll see if we can make that magic. Let's keep it going, though. Charlotte and the Knicks. The Knicks are always on the slate when we talk. 222.5. I was complaining about Julius Randle before the show. He was just not engaged at all in the last game against the Bulls. So what do we look at in this game? Two Eastern Conference teams, a lot to get to.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a couple here we got to get to real quick. The no-brainer bet. I really like Randall under 2.5 3-pointers and expected ROI north of 25%. Easy as that. Not for the faint of heart bet. Alec Burks 1+ blocks or over 0.5 blocks, plus 260, and expected ROI north of 30% on that one. But actually, my favorite bet for Burks is his rebounding prop, over 5.5 rebounds. In the last month, he's averaged 5.8 rebounds per game in 33 minutes. Tonight, we got him projected for 37 minutes against a Charlotte team who ranks 27th in rebounding percentage over their last 10 games. We got him projected for 6.2 rebounds here and over in 59% of our simulations. It was at 5.0 if you played on Prize Picks earlier today, but I still like 5.5 as a prop line.
Same thing, over 5.5 plus 105. And we have the actual raw projection over that number. So in addition that your break even is under 50%, we are saying he clears this prop more often than not. And I think that is definitely something that we need to look to. I like that. I can get on board with that. No doubt about it. A couple others I want to throw at you before we move to this game. Mason Plumlee works his way into the show a lot. We've looked at his rebounding prop at times. His points prop is just 5.5. We haven't projected near 7. I think it's a little thin, but he's almost 60% X win rate. Yay, nay, indifferent. What do you do with a guy like that?
You caught me, man. I'm sorry. Moving on to the next game, making my next prop bet.
Okay.
Which guy were you talking? I'm sorry.
No problem. It's Mason Plumlee, a guy, like I said, he infiltrates the show more often than you would think. He always shows up as a decent value. I've shied away from his rebounding prop at times. His points prop, his over, looks like it's a potential one. I know it's not your premier play in this game, just if you had a lean or you're passing.
Honestly, that looks good to me. It's just all about playing time, right? We've seen some variability here. 3 games ago, 16 minutes. That's what scares me here. But if he gets that 25, 27, maybe even 28 minutes, then I think that's a no-brainer.
I think if you're building same game parlays, it's someone to throw in. I'm not sure I'm going to isolate, but we do have over on assists and points and in a game that I think is somewhat projectable. You mentioned the heavy minutes on the other side for a guy like Burks. So there is some potential value if you're running it back. Not on the DFS side. All right. Biggest spread. Second biggest spread on the slate. The Hawks are a 12.5-point favorite on the road in OKC, 230.5. And of course, the question is going to, just like when they played Portland, who is actually on the court? Is it fans? Is it other people? Because this team has no one left. Trey Mann just not waived. Maybe he will be there tonight. What is the status of him? And how do you proceed with the unknowns?
Yeah, it's really hard, right? Especially at this point in the evening. I obviously keep it locked right here. The deeper dive in live before lock going to help you out in that regard. And just looking at this game, the Oklahoma City money line feels like an absolutely insane bet.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the math. Oklahoma City has an expected win percentage in this game of about 18 to 20%. The bet for the money line is sitting at plus 610. That implies a win probability of roughly 14%. An expected ROI of 33% on this bet. Again, this only happens 1 in 5 times. 80% of the time, you look like an absolute fool. But I tentatively think Oklahoma City money line because math.
Team math always wins in the long run. In the short term, you look like an idiot when you're team math because Oklahoma City's probably going to get blown off the floor. It's not about that, though. It's just, is plus 610 a good enough price? Now, shopping it, you've got plus 610. You also have plus 525 out there just to show you the gap of the difference. At near 5 to 1, it's not a good bet anymore. It's actually probably negative expected value. But identifying that hanging outlier price for them could be effective. Are you willing to coexist with some props, even a Trae Young over on like a 3-pointers? Capella's rebounds is up to 13.5. It's been at 12.5. We're shorting that again. It's always a scary proposition. Can I interest you in any individual props, or are you just going with your, your one home run long shot?
Trae Young, where's his 3-pointer line at? Is it at 1.5 or 2.5?
So his 3-pointer line, I'm glad you asked, is over under 3.5. Now the over is plus money at plus 120. We haven't projected for near 4 threes though. So if you are looking for a plus money prop that we have going over, I think it's worth taking a look. It is an aggressive line.
He takes plenty. Yeah, it is an aggressive line. He takes plenty of threes per game. And you know what this could look like. All of these, we're kind of chasing we're chasing scenarios that don't happen very often. Jay Miz in chat says, no way they win tonight. I agree with that. Yeah. I agree. Well, we're just talking about value here. Honestly, that line's too high for me. That's a zero room for error bet, even if our median projection is technically over that 3.5 line.
Fair enough. I get you. And yeah, I would not blame any person for putting their money elsewhere outside of the OKC money line. Yes. That's a pretty reasonable take, no doubt about it. But we see double-digit dogs cash nightly in the NBA. It happens. Just got to find the numbers. Sacramento and Houston, 230.5. slight favorite for the road team in Sacramento. Of course, not the most glamorous game, but again, are there guys that we can take advantage of here in the prop world? Some guys stepping up at the end of the year. Davion Mitchell's been a popular guy on the show. Where else are you looking?
Yeah, and I just want to say from a fan's perspective and just, projecting these players out to the future, really great to see Jalen Green kind of putting it together much more in the second half here. Still, I'm shorting him today in the assist department. Under 3.5 assists looks pretty nice from a value perspective. I know we got a median projection at just 3.3, so it looks kind of razor thin, one of those zero room for error bets. But again, looking at the value, it looks all right. Davion Mitchell is the best value points prop bet we have on the board tonight, under 22.5. He's going to play plenty. We understand that. 39 minutes nearly is our projection for Davion Mitchell. So the playing time's not the problem. But still, when we're seeing that much playing time and still well under in terms of raw point projection, nearly 3 points under his prop line, seems pretty easy. An expected win rate about 2/3, 68% of the time.
I'm with you. Bet this prop the other day. Game went to overtime. Awful way to lose it. But you know what? You got to put that out. No recency bias here. I can get on board with that. I'm not going to bet this game from a side standpoint, but I actually think the uglier games in some of these, teams that are really struggling, there are real opportunities in the prop market. And a guy like Davion Mitchell has been a really good, not just short all the time, but in certain spots, shorting his points, I think is where we need to go. All right, what do we got? 3 games left. This is a walk in the park. 3 games in 5 minutes. And then we got Ship My Money and the man himself, Alex Baker, coming up next. Memphis team is unbelievable. 4.5-point favorites. The Spurs, they are battling like many to just remove the Lakers from society. 234.5. Memphis has just been fantastic. This team is just a machine right now. So from the prop world, this is a highly competitive game. Dejounte Murray is, talk about unstoppable. He's been absolutely fantastic. His props are always up there. Where do you go in this one?
Well, first of all, you said it. You didn't bury the lead at all. Memphis in their last 10 games, number 1 in the NBA in defensive rating, number 1 in net rating, and number 1 in pace. Can't wait till Ja comes back healthy. Still, if you look at same game parlays, how about starting with those Murray overs? Over 7.5 rebounds. We got him projected for 8.8, an expected win rate of 65%. Over 1.5 steals for Murray, projected at 2.2, expected win rate of 64%. And then we look at 3-pointers. Again, maybe if you're playing a single game parlay, you got to press 2+ 3-pointers, but still, that's an expected win rate north of 50%. As it stands on a standalone bet, it's actually at plus money again, plus 142. I like it either way, if depending on the way you're playing on whatever platform. In the last month, he's played 35 minutes. Tonight, we've got him at nearly 36 minutes. Murray's great, man. That's all you can say. Tough matchup.
Real quick, can I interest you in Spurs money line plus 185? Because I think they win tonight.
Wow.
All right. Won 4 straight. They're at home. I think Memphis is playing amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Plus 800 right now? Is that what I'm seeing? No. Plus 190. Plus 190.
Yeah,
sorry.
Plus 800. Truck. Plus 185. They're a 4.5-point dog at home. I think they make it certainly a competitive game, and I will have a position on the Spurs money line tonight. I think that they are primed to pull a big win at home and make it 5 straight.
Wow. I like it. Definitely happens more than a third of the time, so not crazy.
Come on, Spurs. And Murray certainly is going to have a big game if they're going to get that done. He's playing near 40 minutes. These are huge games for them. I expect all of that to be the same tonight in a big-time game. All right, here we go. 2 left. Phoenix, another 4.5-point favorite, and this could be a playoff preview. In Golden State, 221.5. Talk to me about the Suns. Talk to me about the Warriors.
Yeah, this one's kind of fun. 2 over 4.5 rebounds bets for some star shooting guards. That's pretty easy to remember. Booker, over 4.5 rebounds, sitting at plus 116 right, as I looked right before the show. That's an implied probability of 46%. We've got this happening 61% of the time in our latest simulations with a projection of nearly 5.5. And then looking at Klay Thompson, over 4.5 rebounds as well. A slightly lower expected win rate, about 54%, but still plus money, plus 140, an expected ROI north of 30%. He's already gone over this in 45% of his games over the last month, and we've got him playing more minutes today than he's averaged here, about a minute more than his last month average on the court here. That's good enough for me. I like being optimistic about these two players, and I hope this is as competitive as the spread and total implied it's going to be.
They finally moved the Clay prop up. He had been over 3.5 rebounds for a while now. It's been an easy over every time. Now, of course, the juice has shifted. You're getting a much more enticing line. It's just much harder to cash it. I still think you go over there. Booker over free throws made from chat. Very interesting. Never would have thought of that. I will look at that after the show, but we've got 1 minute left and we've got one game. And as me and Matt always say, we've thrown out a ton of bets. If you want to know which bets are actually on the card, which bets are Alex Baker and Steve Buzzard putting on their cards, you'd want to get in our premium Discord. Sign on up, even if it's just for the week. Check out what we're doing there. I think you're going to love the community. It's a fun time. Sweat the games together. We've got the Pelicans. We've got the Blazers. 226, huge spread, 14.5 points. I don't think the game stays competitive as the spread indicates, but final bets before we bounce on out of here.
There's some technical value in the underdog money line. Maybe you bet plus 800 on Portland money line because you hate yourself. I won't be doing it. Listen to these people out. Bledsoe, Nurkic, Simons, Watford, Hart, Winslow, Lillard, Little, and of course, Ingles. Absolutely absurd injury list for Portland. I certainly think New Orleans smashes here, but we're talking about carving those values. No player props here. This is going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say. CJ McCollum over 5.5 assists would be my favorite of the bunch if I had to go there, but he easily could be sitting on the bench laughing while creative players play for the last hour of this game. It is tough sledding for the Blazers, but there you have it. 11 up, 11 down. Thanks for everyone for hopping in, checking us out. We're going to turn it over to the deeper dive. They're going to get you set for what's going to be a wildly entertaining NBA slate. Thanks to Tyler behind the glass and Odd Chopper for powering the show. For me, for Matt, for everyone here, good luck. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you guys soon.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive presented by Prize Picks. Got a nice 11-game slate today, and we're starting to get a little bit towards late season NBA. A few shenanigans so far. We'll give you all the ins and outs of what you need to be looking for and what you need to be avoiding. Unfortunately, we got the perfect guy to help us do that. Adam, Ship My Money Scherer. Adam, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty well. Took yesterday off, so excited to get back to basketball and late March NBA. Always plenty of stuff to talk about.
That is certainly the case. So let's start with that. Just I noticed on Monday there was one case of what I would call shenanigans, which was Orlando was in this super close game with the Cavs, and then they put in their bench squad to like the like third string like garbage time guys in like this like really close game to end it, and like that was really unfortunate. If you had any Orlando starters, or if you had the Mo Wagner under 5.5 rebounds line like me. So have you seen anything, or like have you seen anything other than that, or what did you make of that?
Yeah, so I didn't realize that happened on Monday. Orlando did that against OKC at one point last week. I remember because I was sweating. I needed like Trey Mann not to get not to get like 6 more fantasy points in the fourth quarter. OKC just never put him back in, but then in that game it was like a 12 to 15 point game, and Orlando scored like 2 or 3 buckets in a row, and they just took out Cole Anthony with 6 minutes to go, put in Brastakis, and Cole Anthony never came back. So yeah, I didn't realize they did that on Monday, but that is not the first time they've done it.
Definitely, yeah, they're always a team to look out for, and it makes sense from a incentive standpoint for the team. So we'll have to break down which teams are still in it, which teams are out of it, which may have kind of like clinched a certain spot. I don't think like there's too many cases like that. Although it seems like Phoenix is kind of running away with the West. Have you seen anything else?
No.
Okay.
And I mean the thing too, I don't remember who Orlando played on Monday. But one thing that like I get a little bit more cautious when it's two bad teams playing each other as opposed to when it's just one. Like, for example, OKC in the competitive game they played against Denver, they just went for it down the stretch. They played their starters normal minutes because it's not like they get, the double whammy of we accidentally won a game and the team that we're competing with for the worst record lost. Whereas when it was OKC Orlando, they were both just like, yeah, neither one of us want this game.
Fair enough. Yeah. They were playing the Cavs, so I know the Cavs really wanted to win. Maybe there was some handshake deal. You'll never know.
Yeah.
But all right, guys. Before we get into the game-by-game breakdown, first I want to apologize to that one guy in chat who says I sound really boring every time. Truthfully, the only thing that brings me joy is hitting the like button. So if you could do that, much appreciated. Also, we have a lot of free stuff on the site today: NBA ownership rankings, NHL player rankings, and PGA rankings. Plus, check out the podcast section. If you leave a review, you can win a free month of Awesemo Plus. All right. First game, we got Denver 9.5 point favorite versus the Pacers. Now, the Pacers are a team that they've had a lot of questionables, and today's no exception, so that'll be interesting. But on the Denver side, Jokic is always liable to break a slate. So what are you seeing today?
Yeah, so still from the Denver side, I think Jokic looks fantastic. We know that Indiana is even if their questionable players play, you're still talking about a front court with some combination of Goga and Jackson and Jalen Smith. Like, it's just a phenomenal spot for Jokic. They're on the road, which is nice. In terms of maybe the game stays competitive a little bit longer. They're 10-point favorites still, but just a phenomenal spot for Jokic. I've loved targeting this Indiana front court with guys that are not nearly as good as Jokic. So really, really like getting to him here. Beyond him, though, I still think it's pretty difficult. It is still a good matchup for guys like Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, Monty Morris, but it's also a really big slate, and there's going to be a lot of really good plays elsewhere. So still hard to talk about Barton, Gordon, Morris, Highland, any of those guys as any sort of a priority, whereas I think Jokic is very clearly one of the best plays on the slate.
Definitely, yeah. It's tough to lock in a guy that you just kind of feel iffy about, like Aaron Gordon or Barton. Aaron Gordon has been he's been on a crazy tear. I realized that after I bet the under the other day. JaMychal Green is questionable for this one. I don't know how much that makes a difference, but Jeff Green played a ton last game that JaMychal Green wasn't playing. So I guess they go with that green combo. If one of them's out, does the other get more minutes?
Yeah, I think it does make Jeff Green look a bit better if JaMychal's out. You do have a pretty nice $3,500 price tag on Green. The issue is still though, like he's not a great point per minute guy. He would certainly be in the mix as far as good as value plays go if JaMychal's out. But this is also the first game of the slate, and we're probably going to get news after lock too. So it's a situation I know you talk about a lot where in 150 max, I'm not gonna there's not a whole lot I can do to just completely go out of my way and avoid early guys. But if you're somebody playing, a few lineups and actually really paying attention to who's in each individual lineup, as far as tiebreakers go, being in the first game of the night is a bit of a downgrade.
Yeah, that's a good call. On the Indiana side, fortunately, they're playing in the early game, so we should have a good idea who's in, who's out. But Malcolm Brogdon, Dwayne Washington, Shea Brissett, Isaiah Jackson, and Yoyo Batadze are all questionable right now. So honestly, it feels like we'll just let whoever is on the show when the news breaks handle this one. But do you have any thoughts about Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many questionable guys. From I guess a broader standpoint, if Brogdon is out, it benefits Halliburton. His pricing is wildly different between sites, though. So he looks really good on FanDuel, especially if Brogdon is out. He's going to be difficult to get to no matter what on DraftKings. I think Hield and Batadze are probably the most reasonably priced guys on DraftKings if we assume everyone except Brogdon is in. But then, if you get Batadze out, you get Jackson out, then obviously Smith starts to look better. If Brissett is out, that is even more minutes that Jalen Smith could potentially play. Terry Taylor can play more. So when literally half the team is questionable, I think it's really difficult to run through all of the different, potential situations. But we do kind of just have a good idea at this point of what Indiana looks like when they're shorthanded because they've been ruling guys out for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Tyrese Halliburton looked like he would be in the winning lineup last slate, but then there was that overtime in the last game. So he has some upside, but the price has gone up a ton. I wasn't expecting having to pay $9,700 for him. Dallas at Cleveland. Okay, so Dallas, you have Dinwiddie out for rest, so that's going to open up some opportunities. He's been playing about mid-20s a game, so on the court a decent amount with Brunson and Luka, so maybe they get a little bit more usage and assists. And then the minutes, it's kind of tough to pin down what's going to happen with minutes because he was coming off the bench. Or what would be your best guess of maybe who benefits as far as minutes with Spencer out?
Yeah, in terms of minutes, I doubt that you really see much in the way of DFS actionable stuff. I think you probably get a little bit more run for some combination of Josh Green, Frank Ntilikina, maybe Davis Bertans plays a little bit more, but it's not like you really care about that for DFS. I think the most actionable stuff for DFS is that Luka does look better. I mean, he's played 857 minutes this year without Dinwiddie, Porzingis, or Tim Hardaway Jr. on the floor. He's averaged 1.68 DraftKings points per minute. You saw the nice bump for him before the Dinwiddie trade after Hardaway was injured when Porzingis was still out. And it was kind of surprising to me because Hardaway isn't a super high usage guy, but even taking his 22% usage rate or whatever it is out of the lineup just basically turned into even more production for Luka. And I expect that to be the case here. And then another thing to like for Luka is that, we know Cleveland's been a very solid team defensively this year, but they're missing both of their main defensive pieces with Evan Mobley joining Jared Allen on the sidelines. So it can be difficult to quantify, exactly how much worse they're going to be, but I do think it's pretty fair to say Cleveland's not the same defensive team today that they have been most of the season.
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe we can give a little bit of a bump to Dallas. Luka is standing out as a positive value, despite the fact that he is 12K. So definitely a guy I want to be looking at tonight. On the Cleveland side, as you mentioned, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are out. So with Mobley missing a lot of the last game, Kevin Love ended up getting a ton of minutes, 32. My assumption is he starts at center and gets a lot of minutes. They don't really, they have Moses Brown and Ed Davis behind him. So The price is kind of high to compensate for this new role at 6,900 on DK. How are you feeling about Kevin Love tonight?
I still like him here, assuming he starts, because I think one positive that's worth noting is that not only did he play like 32 and a half minutes last game when he started the second half, but in the game against Toronto a few games ago when he started, he also played about 32 minutes in that game. So it does give me some confidence that we're not going to get a situation where, Kevin Love starts, but they still treat him with kid gloves and only play him 24 minutes or something. Barring foul trouble, injury, anything like that, I fully expect north of 30 minutes from him. And he's played 678 minutes with Darius Garland on the floor this year. He's still averaged 1.17 DraftKings points per minute, has a 22.3% usage rate, 18.3% rebounding percentage. He's still, producing well. So the salary has come up a bit, and Dallas, certainly not the fastest paced team, so not the most appealing there. But I do still think that there's some value there in Kevin Love. I think he's a bit of a negative for everybody else in the starting lineup because he just does so many different things. He's a relatively higher usage guy than Mobley, higher usage guy than Allen. He rebounds at a higher clip than Mobley. So I think that, cuts into, for example, Lauri Markkanen. But you're also just talking about probably at least a little bit of increased usage for guys like Garland and LeVert. In those 678 minutes they've shared the floor, Garland has a 27.5% usage rate. So it's still good, but it's down from, what you were getting when like LeVert and Love were coming off the bench. And then LeVert has only played 87 minutes with both of those guys, but he has a 19.7% usage rate. So I think the playing time for LeVert is likely to be there and make him look decent at 5,900. But I do think it's important to note the potential negative impacts in rates that Kevin Love has for these guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, he's a great rebounder, a lot of usage, so that I could bring down the rest of the starting lineup. Caris LeVert does stand out a little bit. He has minutes limit rescinded a couple games ago, and he played 36 minutes, and then he played 32. But he didn't close the whole game. It looks like Lamar Stevens closed ahead of Caris LeVert, him and Dylan Windler. So that was kind of a fluke. He could have played 38 minutes if he did get all those closing minutes. So I think the upside is intriguing with Caris, but I don't think his numbers have been quite as good with this Cavs squad. So how are you handling him?
Yeah, the closing lineup last game was weird. We have seen Lamar Stevens kind of just play a bigger role than I would expect. Like he's taken minutes from LeVert more frequently than I would have anticipated, but I still think more often than not, you're going to get LeVert in the closing lineup. Probably to some extent has to do with what the score is. Stevens is a better defender. So I could see a situation, where like last game, they ended up winning by 6. I'm not sure exactly what the score was when they subbed, but maybe you see like, if they're ahead, Stevens is in there. And if they're not, LeVert is in there. But, I think more often than not, you're looking at 34 to 36 minutes from LeVert. I do have some concerns in his production because, like you said, he hasn't been great since joining Cleveland. On the one hand, he was still producing around 0.9 fantasy points per minute when he played with Brogdon and with Sabonis this year. So I do think his production comes up. But on the other hand, it's not like you're going to have Caris LeVert out there running the show when he's playing a bunch of minutes alongside Kevin Love and Darius Garland.
Yeah, for sure. Orlando, Washington. The line here is minus 3.5 for Washington. So that's a number that makes me really worried about picking anyone from Washington, to be honest. But on the Orlando side, it's really hard to. I mean, with the last game, like Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz didn't get closing minutes. None of the starters did. So the only. Yeah, Chuma Okeke did. He didn't start that game, though. So, but Wendell Carter is out tonight. That provides a little bit of more opportunity for guys like Bamba and Okeke. But this is a team that I'm really tempted to just kind of X out in Fantasy Cruncher and not pick anyone from the Magic. How are you handling Orlando?
I think ownership plays a really big role for me with a team like this because on the one hand, they are missing players. They're missing Suggs, they're missing Carter. So there's a lot of usage available for anyone that's on the floor, but, particularly guys like Cole Anthony. The downside is that they still have plenty of bodies available. So it's not like they're in a situation where they have to run a really tight rotation or anything like that. And you could certainly see the same thing that we saw, against Cleveland, where just none of the main pieces played down the stretch. But I do think $5,100 Chuma Okeke is still a reasonable option. He was really disappointing in his last start, but he's likely to play north of 30 minutes, and he's not getting a ton of ownership right now. We only have him projected for about 8% ownership with an 8% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Similarly, somebody like RJ Hampton sucks from a fantasy standpoint, like no way around it. He's averaged 0.65 DraftKings points per minute in the games that he has started with Cole Anthony this year. But we also have him projected for 2% ownership at $3,800. It's not like it should shock anybody if he does get 28 to 30 minutes. So, Mo Wagner certainly has a ceiling as well, coming off the bench, backing up Bamba. So I do think that there are high ceilings here. It's just really, really risky because not only are you dealing with a situation where you have to have those players play well, but you also need them to get full minutes. And it's not, a lot of times when we talk about playing time volatility, it's something that we really like in tournaments because if somebody's playing well and they can get more minutes, then it makes them really appealing. But this is a case where they can play well and then get less minutes because Orlando doesn't want to win the game.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they get, if they're doing too good, then maybe they get off the court. It's
right.
Like the like
yeah,
the worst thing for DFS. So.
Cole Anthony knocks down a couple threes and just gets set to the end of the bench for the rest of the half.
So on the Washington side, they took Howell Neto out of the rotation for the last 2 games. So it's been Tomas Satoransky starting at point guard. Ish Smith is kind of seeing a little bit more work as well, but that's about the most exciting thing on the Wizards. It feels like, although Porzingis on the team has been pretty effective, is there anyone on the Wizards that you feel good about?
I think Porzingis stands out as the best option of the group. It's obviously a good matchup against Orlando. He's averaged nearly 1.5 DraftKings points per minute without Kuzma since he joined Washington, and I expect him to play around 30 minutes here in a good spot. For the rest of the Wizards, though, they just continue to be a really weird team from a fantasy standpoint because there's not one guy that stands out to me as like a top option, but at the same time, like everybody in the rotation, I think is playable at their current salaries. So to me, one thing that's really important with them, because it's a situation where I think it's likely that 1 or 2 of the cheap Washington guys do well. It's just a matter of kind of being lucky and hitting the right one. I do think groups play a really big role with a team like this. I wouldn't want Porzingis and Gafford together. I don't want Satoransky and Smith together because they're not really sharing the floor. I don't think you would want more than 2 Wizards anyway, but if for some reason you did, I don't think I would go more than 2 of the like Avdia, KCP, Rui, Kispert group either. So I do think the rules are really important, but it's kind of just like everybody looks decent and nobody looks great.
Agreed. Yeah, it seems like they priced this one pretty accurately, so not a ton of value. Just got news that Alex Len and Jeremy Lamb are both out tonight for the Kings. We'll get to that game in a little bit, but nothing earth shattering. You couldn't say that the slate is exactly flipped on its head. All right. For next game, I mean, we got a lot of discounts, and also you can get opportunities like beta testing new tools and features by joining our Awesemo MVP text program. So the way it works, you text MVP to 1-660-656-4417. And then we're also doing a giveaway where you can win a year of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That's worth a bunch of money. So definitely something to shoot for. And we have a link in the video description with more information on this program. So make sure to check that out. All right. Miami at Boston. On the Miami side, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, and Caleb Martin are all questionable tonight. But Duncan Robinson, he got benched last game. So I don't think this really is going to make much of a difference. We're kind of expecting Max Strus to start anyway. The Heat, though, it seems like they have the incentive to play hard. That being said, I'm not seeing a ton of ways to attack this team. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating because like this is a game between two of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, so you expect it to be a good game, but it's also two defensive teams, two teams that play at a slow pace, and two teams that are pretty much correctly priced. So you're certainly never going to fault anyone if you get to a little bit of Bam Adebayo or Jimmy Butler, guys like that in tournament lineups, but it's just very difficult to prioritize them at these price points in this matchup. Strus could be kind of interesting if he starts. Like he is only 3,400. He did play 30 minutes last game. And he's not, a horrible point per minute guy, but you're still, he's still a risky play because, like, for example, Kyle Lowry didn't play at all in the fourth quarter last game. Tyler Hero did, but he still only played 28 minutes total when normally he's going to play a little bit more than that. So even if Strus starts, there's no guarantee he gets 30 minutes. You could very easily see something like 24 to 26.
Agreed. Yeah. They got plenty of guys off the bench that, like, especially Tyler Hero, that could get a lot of those minutes. So, I'm not seeing a ton on the Heat. On the Celtics side, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum are probable. So, and Al Horford is also back for this one. So that's going to take a lot of value away from the guys that we picked the other night with like Marcus Smart and Derek White. So the net result is I'm not seeing a ton to play here. Maybe Jalen Brown at 8,100 and 7,700 on FanDuel. But Boston, let's see, they are third in the East, so very much a competition for the one seed. So it seems like they're going to be playing hard.
If they want.
Well, that's a. Well, do you want to break that down for people real quick?
So my assumption as far as the one seed in the Eastern Conference goes is that I don't think teams are going to actively tank to avoid it, but like there's a good chance the one seed or the two seed end up playing Brooklyn, which is clearly just a brutal draw when you have teams that just potentially aren't as good, that don't have Kevin Durant, for example. But so I don't anticipate a team like actively tanking. I do think what you're going to see is teams prioritize having their guys healthy and maybe just resting, here and there down the stretch. But when guys are playing, like I expect, like with Tatum playing, with Brown playing, I expect Boston to play this game to win. I don't think you're going to get the situation where it's like, oh, we might beat Miami, let's pull everybody. So I don't think you're going to get that kind of situation. I don't necessarily think teams care that much about getting the one seed in the East.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So maybe just expect the normal rotations here. No playoff mode yet. Now, people in chat are clamoring. They're saying that Al Horford is interesting at 5,900 on DK. I have to admit, I'm not convinced. Do you have any thoughts?
He looks pretty neutral to me. I mean, with Robert Williams out, like sure, there's more rebounds to go around. Potentially a few more minutes for Horford, but 5,900 I think still pretty reasonable, and this is still just a difficult matchup against Miami. So I kind of think all of Boston is in that same boat, whether you're talking about Tatum or Brown or Smart or Horford. Like they're all just kind of priced where they should be. I did mention Tatum specifically in my FanDuel tournament video earlier, and it kind of applies to DraftKings as well. He's projected to go a little bit under-owned in terms of optimal lineup percentage versus ownership, but he's still very unlikely to be in the optimal lineup. So players like that typically aren't guys that I'm, building around heavily, that I'm getting a lot of exposure to, but they are good targets, in individual lineups where maybe you have a bunch of popular players and you need somebody that still has a very high ceiling, but that isn't getting much ownership. I think guys like Tatum and Brown and to some extent Horford fit in those kind of spots.
For sure. All right, Minnesota at Toronto. Minnesota is a 3-point underdog here. So the Timberwolves have had a pretty nice season. They're sitting in 7th. That means that if they perform well down the stretch, they should get out of the play-in spots. Let's recap the play-in tournament real quick, just because I'm a little rusty. So I think, is it the way it works, the 7 and 8 seed play, and then the loser plays the winner of 9 and 10?
Yeah, 7-8 plays, 9-10 play. Loser of 7-8 plays winner of 9. Winner of 7-8 becomes the 7 seed. Loser of 7-8 plays the winner of 9-10 to become the 8 seed.
Nice. So if you're the 7 or 8 seed, that's about a 75% chance of making the playoffs. So that not bad, but there's definitely incentive to play. Try to get a bunch of wins at the end of the season here for the Timberwolves.
They could also catch Denver.
Nice. And then on the Toronto side, they are in 6th in the East, so it's pretty much the same situation, except they're one spot ahead of the play-in tournament. So expecting some Titan rotations for Minnesota. At least that's what we saw last game. Malik Beasley missed it. And then Anthony Edwards, he ended up playing 37 minutes, but it wasn't a game that the starters stayed on the court till the end. They were pulled with like 4 minutes left, it looks like. So that potentially could have been like 41 minutes. And then Karl Anthony Towns also played 35. So kind of the same situation where he saw more run. Being a big, he can't really expect it quite as easily as Edwards, let's say. But do you expect Minnesota with Beasley out to give some more minutes to these to Edwards?
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely. And then we also saw a bunch of minutes for Jalen Noel. He played like almost 27 minutes and didn't get any of that garbage time run. So that was a pretty interesting takeaway too, that, he just basically got all of the Beasley minutes, actually plus some. Beverly, for what it's worth, didn't play as many minutes as normal. So I don't think you project Noel for 26 minutes here, but if he even plays like 22 at 3,500, even he looks like a pretty good value. But yeah, I think kind of just all throughout Minnesota's rotation, they just look like good plays. Karl Anthony Towns is a little bit cheaper than normal at 9,600. Same goes for Edwards. We have him projected to be under-owned on DraftKings. 14% optimal percentage, 12% ownership percentage. Looks pretty good. Only 7,300 with shooting guard, small forward eligibility. So I think he's probably the best guy from Minnesota on DraftKings. But, Towns, like I said, at 9,600. Beverly at 4,900. D'Angelo Russell at 6,600. Noel at 3,500. All of these guys, I think, look like pretty good plays.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of interesting options on the Timberwolves tonight. On the Toronto side, we got Kem Birch, questionable. I don't even know if he's going to be in the rotation, if he's in, to be honest. So I don't think that matters. But you know who to play in Toronto is the starters. Aside from the starters, it seems like Boucher and Precious Achua are kind of getting their minutes potentially reduced with OG back, as well as Gary Trent. So OG's looking like maybe the best value at 5,700, but Gary Trent at 5,900 is interesting. Hard to get to the other guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think OG stands out the most. He's back to playing normal minutes. He's around a 0.9 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. He has shooting guard and small forward eligibility in a pace-up spot. Just going to be, I think, pretty easy to fit him into lineups in various different roster constructions. So I like him at 5,700. From an upside standpoint, I think Trent's a little bit underpriced as well. We know that his usage rate comes down when Fred VanVleet plays. So it's not that I think he's massively under-owned in terms of median projection, but when Trent gets hot from three, he's just going to keep jacking up shots and, certainly can put up a big game. So I'm interested in those two. And then beyond that, it's more so just more guys that fall into that like Boston, Miami bucket where you're not going to be upset if you get to Siakam or VanVleet or Scotty Barnes. Like they still offer plenty of upside, but you're paying for it as well.
Yeah, man, this slate, if it's feeling a little tough to find guys that really like plant a flag with.
Yeah, well, then you get the Sacramento-Houston game.
All right, so maybe just we'll have to wait and see. All right, Charlotte at New York. Charlotte is a 3-point favorite. So no injuries of note on the Hornets. So pretty much the usual suspects: LaMelo, Terry Rozier, Bridges. I'm not seeing anything of note, to be honest. So what do you see?
I see a team that has like 5 different guys that are projected to be a little bit under-owned in tournaments, but that are also really difficult to prioritize because they're not that likely to succeed. I think starting with LaMelo, who's 9K on FanDuel, 9,200 on DraftKings, he's someone that I just always like at low ownership in tournaments because not only is he a really good point per minute guy at about 1.3 fantasy points per minute in the games Hayward hasn't played, but there's volatility in his playing time too. He has enough, random games where either he's in foul trouble or he just plays 30 minutes for whatever reason, that it kind of keeps that salary deflated a little bit, but knowing that there's games where he can play 36 to 38 minutes, if you happen to get him in one of those games, then he's clearly underpriced. Like if you could confidently say LaMelo is going to play 36 minutes, he would be more expensive than he is. So I do like getting to guys like that in tournaments. And then, kind of to a lesser extent, but also at cheaper price tags, Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier, Mason Plumlee, they all have the ability to really just destroy the salaries that they're at. It's just that they're not that likely to do so. So it's a team where I think I get a decent amount of exposure collectively in tournaments, but I don't know that there's one player that I really like plant a flag and say like, oh yeah, I'm just playing, 30% of this one guy.
Yeah, totally. Mason Plumlee is a little bit interesting on FanDuel. Like if I only had 4,300, I might click that button. But New York plays pretty traditional with their bigs, so there's a chance that Charlotte plays a little bit more Plumlee and Harrell at the 5 compared to they only combined for about 30 minutes 2 games ago and 33 in the last game before I should say they combined for about mid-30s in both games. So that's a lot of minutes with PJ Washington or Jalen McDaniels at the 5. So maybe with New York playing Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims, more traditional bigs, you get more minutes for those guys, but it's always tough to call in today's NBA. All right, on the other side, Evan Fournier is questionable. I don't know if you were following the early day drama. They ruled Evan Fournier out, but then they amended that and said he's questionable. So that makes me a little bit more skeptical he goes tonight than an average night. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't really know what to read into that since it's a personal thing too. It kind of seemed like, he was just like, oh, I'm not going to be there tonight. And then he was like, oh, hang on, maybe I'll be there tonight. So like, I don't really know what to do with that. If he's out, I think it makes Emmanuel Quickley look even better at 5,200. Like if Fournier is in, there's still a path to success for Quickley. It's still certainly a good matchup, but it's hard to rely on him. If you take Fournier's minutes away, I think Quickley's pretty likely to be getting to 30 minutes or so, at least. And so, because like you have Quentin Grimes out too. And so that's a guy that would normally soak up some of those minutes. So Fournier does actually make a pretty big difference, I think, both for Quickley. Maybe you probably can pencil in more minutes for Alec Burks if Fournier is out as well. And then obviously that guys like RJ Barrett and to a little bit lesser extent, Julius Randle are going to play a ton of minutes anyway.
Yeah. I think Quickley, are you expecting a start if Fournier misses?
I'm not sure. If Grimes were active, I would think Grimes started. So I don't know if maybe they go to McBride just to kind of keep Quickley in the 6th-man role. But they also just wouldn't have that many options. It's basically, I think, either McBride or Quickley.
Now, with New York, it seems like they're pretty much out of contention with 4 games behind the 10 seed. Are you a little bit worried they're going to throw in the towel? They are on a 4-game winning streak, though.
I think Tom Thibodeau is a crazy person, so probably not.
Okay, that's good to know. Now, Julius Randle has been losing minutes to Obi Toppin just because Toppin's been outplaying him to some extent. If Fournier's out, do you think we see more lineups with both of them in it, or is that still going to be a concern?
I don't think you see more lineups with both of them in it because I don't think either one of them's playing the 3. So it would mean like if you get lineups with both of them in it, it would mean that you're taking Robinson or Sims off the floor, which obviously they could, but that's not going to be impacted by Fournier, I don't think. So I still think it's just a situation where it's kind of nice because, if Randle plays well, it's certainly a spot where he can have a lot of success. But like you were saying, Randle has certainly had his struggles recently, and it has impacted his playing time to some extent.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, man, I was tilting. I had the 4.5 assist prop, and he had 4 going into, like, the end of the game. It was real close, but they, like, closed with Toppin until, like, 4 minutes. So, buyer beware. All right, let's talk about Prize Picks. They do a lot of these prop style contests. So you build a lineup of 2 to 5 props, and you can do it in a lot of states that have DFS. So that's really nice. You can use the promo code Awesemo for $100 first match bonus, and you can also get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum by signing up. So you pick 2 to 5 props, and you can kind of pick your payout. So you got to choose, like, if you're going for all or nothing, you get a higher payout. But if you go like 2 out of 3, you can get a different payout. So it's pretty fun. We have a tool on the site to help you pick these. So just go to just Google Prize Picks Awesemo or something like that, and you can find it real easy. But let's talk about some of the props on Prize Picks today. So One of the ones I'm kind of honing in on is this Jordan Poole over 4 assists. With Draymond Green starting again, that could mean that Poole gets less assists, but his assist percentage is it's up in the last 5 games, not down, and his usage is up too. So I don't really see any warning signs that his assists are going to go down. So therefore, I think that over 4 is a good line. It's 4.5 on a lot of the sports books. So what lines are you looking at in Prize Picks?
I like the over 11.5 points on Okeke just because he is someone that we've kind of seen Orlando play regardless of if they're trying to win or lose. It just kind of seems like he fits the best of both worlds, and he's one of their he's the next guy up with Carter out, but he's also like not somebody they mind playing down the stretch. So I think he gets enough minutes to exceed that, and I like the over 26.5 points on Jokic. I just think he absolutely annihilates Indiana.
All right, so we got a trio of overs. So now I got these all in Prize Picks. We can, all right. Okay. So you can either choose flex play. 2 out of 3 pays 1.25x. 3 plays 2.25, or just go for broke. One, if you get them all right, is 5x. Which are we doing?
Always go big or go home.
All right, I like it. So let's throw in there. All right, next game we got Atlanta at OKC. Atlanta 12.5 point favorite. And obviously OKC, like, they pulled a fast one on us on Monday where Trey Mann, I don't think he was on the injury report, and it was the Island game at the end of the night, and then he's out. So
yeah. 17 total active players in that game. So like literally only one person could be late scratched, and we still got it.
That's insane. All right, so Atlanta is currently in the 10th seed, 2 games back of the Nets and 8 seeds, so should be heavily incentivized to win. But they're a big favorite, so there is a garbage time liability. Now, DeAndre Hunter is questionable for this one, and he missed the last game, so that's something we got to take into account. Gallinari is out for this one. So all the factors seem to be pointing towards this being a team that we could potentially target. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for Atlanta, and I think there's a lot of ways that you can attack it. Trae Young obviously looks very good at 11K. He's in a good spot. He's sees increased usage without Collins. He's just likely to have a very, very good game here. Similarly, $6,500 Capella should play 28 to 30 minutes, should have plenty of success against this front court. But then moving beyond those guys, if Hunter is out, then you're potentially getting 30 minutes apiece from Luwawu Cabarrot and DeLon Wright at pretty cheap price tags. Neither one's a very good fantasy producer, especially when you consider that DeLon Wright will be playing a lot of his minutes alongside Trae Young, but they're cheap enough and in a good enough matchup where they would certainly carry some appeal. Bogdanovic at 6,600 is fine in tournaments. But then one guy, too, that I think, like, if you're not getting to Capella, you can certainly take some shots on a $3,500 Okongwu, who in an average game is going to play like 18 to 20 minutes most likely, but certainly has paths to playing more, whether Capella gets in foul trouble or the game gets out of hand early and Okongwu gets a few extra minutes. It's a situation where, I think his median projection is pretty good for his salary, but there's also some volatility, where he could do even better than we're expecting. Definitely.
They've shown that if Okongwu plays well, he can get the minutes from Capella. We've seen games that it looks like his best game, he reached the high 20s in minutes. So it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. It's only 3,500. So I think that's a good dart throw. And then if Hunter's out, that opens up a lot. With Gallo out, who are you expecting to start? I'm kind of penciling in Timothy Lau or Cabarrot, but DeLon Wright started the last game too.
Yeah, I'm guessing that Cabarrot starts, and then that if Hunter is out, Wright also starts. But they do have options. Like if Hunter is in, they can very easily start DeLon Wright, have Hunter slide down to the 4, and Herter play the 3. So my guess is Luwawu Cabarrot, but if Hunter is in, I kind of think it's a coin flip.
On the Oklahoma City side, okay, Malcolm Brogdon ruled out. That helps. Goga's in. So it seems like we're getting all the Pacers news now. Isaiah Jackson is out. So Like, honestly, I don't know how much of a difference that makes. He was off the bench to back up Goga most likely anyway. So does that mean just more Jalen Smith, more Terry Taylor
Um,
with
yeah, I think
Isaiah
so.
Jackson
So
out?
yeah, so we got Washington in, Brissett still a game time decision. Yeah, I mean, Batadze being in, I think on this particular slate makes it difficult for me to really want to take shots at Jalen Smith or Taylor, especially if Brissett ends up playing. If Brissett's out, then maybe you get some more run for Terry Taylor and or Jalen Smith. But there's just going to be so many good value plays that we get to in the next few games.
Yeah.
I think Batadze himself looks okay at 5,900, but probably plays like 28 minutes or so, and I think he's a decent but not great option.
Agreed. Yeah. This Pacers team, it's not as good of value as I would have hoped. Maybe if Brissett does end up missing the game, he's a game time decision still. That could shake things up enough to get these guys, but as of now, not super interested. Okay, to the Thunder. They have 9 guys potentially playing tonight, but Trey Mann is questionable for this one. So that's a big question mark because if he's out, that's a lot of minutes at Maladon, Wiggins, and Pokuševski, as well as they went super big last game and they put a lot of Roby and Sar on the court at the same time. That really opened up things for Roby in particular. Vit Krejci got the start, played a lot of minutes, but I assume with Trey Mann, if he plays, Krejci's off the bench. It's just another one where I just have no clue what to do at this moment. Now, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my assumption, I'm with you. If Mann is in, I think the starting lineup is Maladon, Mann, Wiggins, Pokuševski, Roby. If Mann is out, I think Krejci replaces Mann. Krejci's not a great point per minute guy, but you do certainly have plenty of spots you can get to here because even though prices are rising, they're still pretty productive options. Without Gilgeous-Alexander or Josh Giddey on the floor this year, Pokuševski's average 0.97 DraftKings points per minute. Maladon's at 0.88. Mann's at 0.93. Any of those guys are still, I think, reasonable at their price tags. Isaiah Roby's at 0.96 DraftKings points per minute. And the point that you made about him playing alongside Sar is huge because we've seen Roby's minutes kind of get jerked around all season long. We saw that stretch where they were kind of just like alternating starts between him and Sar. And then you saw a stretch where like Roby would start but only play 16 minutes, and Sar would play 16 minutes, and Bazley would play center. Bazley being out obviously makes it so that's not going to happen. So I think you can expect big minutes from Isaiah Roby. And even at 6,200, if he gets north of 30 minutes, averaging a fantasy point per minute, he's going to look like a pretty good option as well.
All right, we got the news. Bombshell. Frank Ntilikina is out tonight. Don't rush to all adjust your lineups at once. But it actually is kind of interesting. It seems like they're really, really lacking in guard depth. So do you think more minutes for starters tonight for Dallas?
Maybe, but I already thought Bullock was going to play a lot of minutes and Finney-Smith was going to play a lot of minutes. It's just that when Luka's there, there's not a whole lot to do on the floor if you're not named Luka or to some extent Brunson.
For sure.
I think Josh Green probably gets, low to mid 20s now. And then you probably just get, I don't know, a little bit more Bertans or something.
Yeah.
Burke is also out, so they're kind of shorthanded, but they just have so many random wings they can throw in still.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking Luka could see an extra minute, which is big in his, because he's so good at per minute production.
Yeah,
but
no Sterling Brown either. I'd missed that one.
Yeah, so a little shorthanded with the Mavs. Could be interesting, but it's a little bit unclear right now. If it's just going to kind of go to some random guy like Marquise Chris and they go big or something. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I could see it where instead of 35, 36 minutes, Bullock plays 37, 38. Same for Finney-Smith. Maybe Luka gets to 39 instead of 37. And Brunson, maybe plays 36. I could see something like that happening because really they kind of just have Green and Bertans as far as wings / backcourt guys go. Pinson's out, Brown's out, Burke's out, Dinwiddie's out, Hardaway's out, Ntilikina's out. So yeah, I think you're right. You probably do just get a couple of extra minutes for these starters.
And in today's NBA DFS game, man, that can make all the difference. But if you're like banking on that and then they put out too much Bertans or something,
Right.
it hurts. All right. Back to the Thunder. Are you going to have a plan for if Trey Mann sits as far as what you're going to do with the rest of your lineup?
I'll just late swap around it if I need to. I think that I'm going to have, or I know I'm going to have plenty of open roster spots still because this game, the OKC game, starts the same time as the Sacramento game, and it's only a half hour after most of the other games. So I'm not doing anything pre-lock if we don't have man news. I'm just assuming he's in, and I'll have a good amount of him, and then swap a bunch of it to Teo Maladon or whatever I can do if he's out.
Yeah, I think that you're right. We're just going to have enough roster spots open that it's not going to make a huge difference. Someone was saying something about Brandon Knight, and he is on the Mavs right now. So I stand corrected that they do have another guard that I didn't even think of, Brandon Knight, that could fill in today.
I'm not sure that Jason Kidd knows he's on the Mavs either, though.
That is a fair point. But it will be fun to see him if he does crack the rotation this game. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Sacramento at Houston. I know this is a game that you're probably looking to play guys from. And on the Sacramento side, we have Davion Mitchell kind of on a tear where he's playing a ton of minutes and doing pretty well. Jeremy Lamb and Alex Len are out for this game. So that opens up a few more rotation minutes for other guys. Although Len being out, I think we could see some Trey Lyles and Metu lineups. But they do have another center with Nima Myas Keta. So what are you expecting Sacramento to do here?
Yeah, so I think that this is a really good spot to get back to Sacramento. We kind of had to ignore them last slate because they were playing Miami, but now we just get one of these like late March specials where if you like good basketball, you're going to not want to watch this game. But if you like fantasy points, it's going to be a really, really good game. Davion Mitchell has been playing an absolute ton. And I had talked about this before. I really like Mitchell because he just fits like he checks every box for Sacramento. He's the next guy up with Fox and Sabonis out, as far as playmaking goes, as far as usage goes. But he's also one of their young, promising players. So even if, they're knowing that their goal down the stretch is kind of to just get minutes for some of these guys, they want Mitchell to play minutes anyway. So he kind of just checks all those boxes, makes me feel pretty comfortable in his playing time. He's got about a 24.5% usage rate without Sabonis, Fox, or Halliburton on the floor. He has an assist percentage in the mid to upper 20s. He's averaged about a fantasy point per minute. So you're getting a guy that averages a fantasy point per minute is likely to play north of 36 minutes, facing a Houston team that is likely to let him produce at an above average rate. So I think he looks good. Dante De Vincenzo with shooting guard, small forward eligibility, typically playing 30 to 32 minutes at 5,300 looks pretty good. Damian Jones at 4,800 I like quite a bit in tournaments. He played about 26 minutes last game. Keta played about 15 off the bench, and then you did get some Trey Lyles at the 5 as well, like you said. But Jones is around a 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy as well. I think it's a good spot for him. You can certainly take some shots at Trey Lyles, who played 31 minutes last game. Chimezi Metu at 3,900 has some volatility in his minutes where you could really see anything from like 20 to 26 minutes, but he's a good point per minute guy. So, and even Harrison Barnes at 5,900 is fine. So I think Sacramento really top to bottom is just full of good plays here, and they still somehow are not even the most appealing team in this game.
That's funny, yeah. So the Kings technically haven't been eliminated from playoff contention yet. Are you worried at all about them kind of pulling a fast one on us, though?
Not too much, because for one, they just don't have bodies, and for two, it kind of depends who you're talking about. Like I was saying with Davion Mitchell, I don't really think one way or the other that I think they want him to play no matter what. If they're trying to win, you want Davion Mitchell. If they're trying to develop guys, you want Davion Mitchell. Somebody like Harrison Barnes, I would be paying attention to his minutes going forward, because he would be the most likely next guy for them to shut down. But he's coming off of a game where he played 38 minutes, so there's no no reason I can look at him right now and say, oh, I don't think Harrison Barnes plays a lot tonight. But guys like Trey Lyles, Damian Jones, like they don't have any real Chimezi Metu, they don't have any real reason to be limited in these guys.
Yeah, for sure. I do notice Barnes's rates aren't quite as good as you'd expect with some of these guys out. So that's something I hadn't noticed before. But Justin Holiday, I know you're talking about minutes volatility. Like he seems to have that in spades, like playing anywhere from 40 minutes to 16 in the last 5 games. So like,
yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. What do you think?
Well, it's a good thing if you're talking about somebody that typically produces well in their minutes. The issue with Justin Holiday is that he has minutes volatility and typically just isn't very good. He's played 127 minutes without Sabonis, Halliburton, and Fox this year. He's averaged 0.54 DraftKings points per minute. Not that I expect him to be that bad going forward, but he's just somebody where, like, no matter who you put him on the floor with, he's not going to really take over. You know, like Mitchell's going to have more usage than him. Barnes is going to have more usage. De Vincenzo is going to have more usage. So, you know, he's still playable at 4K just because this game is so likely to produce a ton of fantasy points. But I think I would put him behind, like, every other Sacramento guy.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Except for Kevin.
But yeah, I think all the Kings look pretty solid here. Shout out to Goody who gave us a super chat. Thanks for the super chat. He says Fantasy Cruncher loves Houston, and I'm kind of feeling like this is like the Magic situation where they're looking at younger talent. What are we doing with Houston, and who the hell is Garuba? Are we capping this team per lineup? So I think we're gonna hit on all that. But I do want to echo his question. Who the hell is Garuba? Usman Garuba. I actually mentioned him to Tyler before the show, our producer, and he thought I was talking about MMA for some reason. So, like, he was a first-round pick in 2021. So he checks the box that he was a first-rounder. He's only played 129 minutes in the NBA this season, and he did get the backup minutes last game to back up Şengün. But we've only seen him 120 minutes this season. So do you think he gets a start tonight? Do you think they go with Tate and Martin somehow and go super small? What do you expect?
That's my guess at the starting lineup, but I wouldn't be shocked if Garuba started, but my guess is that you get Martin starting at center. I don't feel super strong about it one way or the other. I do think that Garuba is in play regardless. Like if he starts, obviously that's very, very good for his minutes projection. But even if he doesn't, you know, we saw him playing ahead of Bruno Fernando last game, so I assume he's going to play ahead of him again tonight. And even, you know, when you take out Şengün, but you're also taking out Wood and Gordon and Schroeder, there's still a lot of minutes available. So like even if he's coming off the bench, I think it's likely that you end up getting like low 20s in minutes, and in the very limited sample in the NBA, he's been close to a fantasy point per minute guy this year. He has power forward eligibility. So if he comes off the bench, he's obviously riskier, but his ownership will also be lower. If he starts, I think he's safer in terms of they're obviously trying to give him minutes, but the ownership will be much higher. So one way or the other, I think he's a good option. And one way or the other, I think Kenyon Martin is a good option as well. I think he kind of just has to play more minutes, whether it's starting at center, whether it's just, you know, getting more minutes as the backup or whatever. I think both of these guys look pretty good.
Good. I think seeing the starting lineup for this one will be illuminating. So this is one, I feel like it's the perfect timing to be able to have flexibility to make some swaps once we learn this information. The reason why I think it's going to be Garuba is because Damian Jones is starting on the Kings. He's 6'11", 245. The problem with starting KJ Martin and Jae'Sean Tate, they're 6'6" and 6'4", so yeah. There's a huge size difference there. And I know coaches a lot of the time they just don't really want to have big mismatches just to keep their guys a little bit less overwhelmed physically. So I think there's a high chance of a Garuba start, and I like him if he starts. If he doesn't start, I'm thinking I'll swap off him, like almost definitely. I also think there's a chance that Bruno Fernando gets a start for the same reason as Garuba, even though he hasn't been in the rotations.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It wouldn't be surprising if you just get the random Bruno Fernando start. I will say too, rotation-wise, that If Garuba starts, not only do I think that, obviously you project him for more minutes than if he's coming off the bench, but if Garuba starts, that would suggest to me that Fernando's probably going to be in the rotation as well. Whereas if they start small with KJ Martin, I think that you could just get, like more minutes going to guys like Knicks and Nwaba as opposed to Fernando, since they're clearly willing to play small.
Definitely. I think that Tate and Martin both do get a nice bump here. They're grading out as solid values, a lot due to their price tag, but also they closed with both of those guys in the last game, which is something we haven't seen a lot, is them on the court together. So that was a really auspicious sign for both of them. So I think they're both good plays tonight. And then Josh Christopher played a good amount of minutes. He's super cheap. And Kevin Porter is one of the chalk plays tonight. He got the minutes the last game. They're a little short on bodies because Eric Gordon, Dennis Schroeder, and Christian Wood are a lot, in addition to Şengün. So how do you feel about Kevin Porter? And then what about the rest of the team?
Yeah, I kind of like the entire team, because one thing that I think is important with Şengün being out is I've been hesitant to really like bump Kevin Porter's rates when Wood's out, because Şengün has very similar rates in terms of usage rate, assist percentage, all of that. And so when you're replacing Christian Wood with Şengün, you don't necessarily get much of a bump for Kevin Porter. But when you're replacing him with some combination of KJ Martin or Garuba or Fernando, none of those guys are remotely close to Wood or Şengün offensively. And so there is a much bigger role for Kevin Porter Jr. to play. There's a bigger role for Jalen Green to play. I think it makes both of those guys look better. Really like them. I think Jae'Sean Tate's minutes are more secure. He's someone that at times down the stretch you've seen KJ Martin closing over him, and Tate ends up not playing the fourth quarter. I think it's more difficult to do that tonight, given the lack of bigs that they have. So I like him a little bit more. I think Josh Christopher is a good value. This is somebody that can play multiple positions, with Schroeder out and Gordon out. Like you would expect him to back up Kevin Porter anyway, but then there's more, there's wing minutes available for Christopher as well. I think it's likely that he gets upper 20s in minutes tonight at 3,900 with guard forward eligibility. So I like him quite a bit. Even Garrison Matthews at 3,200, I think, is underpriced. So this is just a team where I'm going to get to a ton of guys. I think as far as groups go, I'm not even going to be that strict with groups here, I don't think, because like Garuba and Martin are both so cheap where even if Garuba starts, I think Martin plays enough minutes and they play alongside each other enough where Martin's fine at 3,600. So I think I'd be looking more towards like probably a max 2 of like Garuba, Martin, and Tate. I wouldn't play Garuba and Fernando together, I don't think. And then like a max 2 of probably Tate, Christopher, and Matthews.
Definitely. What's the max from the whole team? I know it's 11 game slates, so I try to limit it to 2 unless it's just like crazy value.
Yeah, I'm leaning 3 just because I think it is crazy value and I think it's a really, really good spot. And then also, kind of like you had mentioned earlier in the show, there's not a lot of other teams that offer value, at least right now. There's a lot of, good plays on the slate, obviously, but in terms of value, like I don't think I want to be really limiting myself. If this were a little bit smaller slate, this is actually bordering on the situation where like I wouldn't mind having 4, but with 11 games, I still have a difficult time getting there, but I think I'll end up capping at 3.
Nice. Fantasy sports fans, what if you caught a break with the potential to net a couple $100K with a less than $100 investment? Breaksofgod.com. So breaksofgod.com, like it's as you might guess from the name, is card breaks, and you basically sign up for a spot. They'll often open like a few different boxes of these premium cards, and before the break, you get assigned. There's a couple different ways to do it. They'll either give you a couple teams or they'll give you a division depending on the specific break you sign up for. So they usually do them on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I've been having a lot of fun entering some of these breaks. Tomorrow looks like they're doing football and baseball. They got a bunch of Panini boxes for football and then some Topps Chrome for baseball. So it's always fun to get some shares of the players that we pick every night in fantasy. So you can get a 30% discount on your first break. You can use the link in the video description or go to breaksofgod.com/830. So once you sign up, follow them on Instagram at breaksofgod. That's where they do the breaks. All right. Let's get to the last 3 games here. Memphis at San Antonio. Memphis Jaren Jackson is questionable. Tyus Jones, it feels like his price still hasn't caught up with Ja Morant being out, so he's kind of interesting. Besides that, I'm not seeing a ton at the moment. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Jones is the one that pretty clearly stands out. I think the pricing is adjusted on everybody else, and it's adjusted somewhat on Jones. Like there's at least some risk now at 5,700, but still underpriced. He started 12. He has started 20 games this year. 0.96 DraftKings points per minute, 30 minutes per game. Likely to be a fast-paced, high-scoring game here. So I still like Jones quite a bit. The rest of Memphis, I think, is more so just in secondary tournament play category. There's still really high ceilings on guys like Bane, especially if Jackson is out. But even if Jackson is in, high ceiling for Jackson, high ceiling for Brooks. But I think they're pretty much correctly priced. Same goes for Steven Adams at 6,100.
Agreed. Yeah, nothing to see here. On the San Antonio side, one thing to know with Memphis, just aside from DFS, is that they've been cruising without Ja Morant. Like that's been kind of surprising. What has been your take on that?
Memphis is just good, I think. Yeah, like I'm surprised how well they've held up, but like Tyus Jones is a good backup point guard. Like he's, probably not somebody you want as your starter all season long, but he's still solid. He still gets it done, and then you just have good players basically everywhere else on this team.
Nice. I would not have expected them preseason to be second in the West. That's a pretty stunning accomplishment by the Grizzlies.
Especially given how much time Brooks missed and Morant has missed.
Yeah. All right. And going to the San Antonio side, DeJounte Murray has been continuing to rack up stats. Doug McDermott still out, but Lonnie Walker is back this game. So maybe we see a little bit less Primo, a little bit less Richardson and Vassell, but still the guys that you can take some shots on the Spurs. Who are your favorites?
Murray's the one that really stands out. Just still, averaging over a fantasy point and a half per minute in the games without Derek White. Likely to be a high-scoring game. A little bit cheaper than Luka and Jokic. I don't think he projects quite as well. I think that goes without saying, but still has a massive ceiling, and you are saving a little bit of money there. He's also, at least last I checked, I'm double-checking now, not projected for much ownership. Yeah, only like 8% ownership on DraftKings. So you are getting a pretty nice ownership discount there for somebody that still has the potential to exceed 60 DraftKings points.
All right, thanks Ben for the super chat. He says, "Is there enough value to play Jokic and Luka tonight?" I'd say this slate, the value isn't as good as a lot of 11-game slates, but you can still probably pull it off. What do you think?
I think you can make some decent lineups that have both of them. Like if you put them both in a lineup on DraftKings, you have $4,266 left over. You can make some decent lineups, but I don't think there's enough value to where like the majority of my lineups are going to have both guys, because the other issue you're going to run into, not only like you were saying, is there not a ton of value for an 11-game slate, but the value is kind of like going to be the same for everybody. Like anybody going those builds is just going to be jamming in Houston guys, maybe throwing in like some TLC if he starts or something like that. But I think it's going to be kind of difficult to build a lineup like that and then still find ways to have lower owned pieces, because it's going to force you on to the value that's available.
Good. Yeah, it's probably going to be pretty duped just because there aren't very many good ways to build that lineup. Nick in chat says Zach Collins season, I should say. So if you want to get off the beaten path, you can always do that. All right, Phoenix at Golden State. Oh, guys, we're only 7 subs away from 75K. So hit that subscribe button, get access, or just see on your feed all of the content we're making for all these different sports. Got a lot of NBA, of course, but MLB coming up. And with the Masters next week, check out our PGA content. So hit subscribe. Hopefully we can hit that. All right, Phoenix at Golden State. Phoenix, Cameron Johnson's doubtful. So pretty much what we've been seeing recently. With Chris Paul back, that's kind of made Devin Booker's interest in Devin Booker go back to a normal level. I'm not really seeing much value here, but DeAndre Ayton could be a little bit interesting at 6,900. How are you handling the Suns?
Yeah, I'm with you on Ayton. I think that's just a pretty reasonable price tag for him. And I also like Chris Paul, particularly in tournaments. I think he's just a little bit underpriced. He's averaged about 1.2 to 1.25 fantasy points per minute when he's played with Booker this year. He's only 8K on DraftKings, I think 8,200 on FanDuel, not getting a ton of ownership. So I think that's the spot that I don't, mind getting to in those lineups where, maybe I have one of Jokic or Doncic, but, not getting to both. Getting to mid-range guys like Chris Paul at relatively low ownership, I think is pretty appealing.
Nice. Yeah, Chris Paul, he did play quite a number of minutes in the last
like 36.
game. 36. That's above what he normally peaks at, so that's definitely a good sign. Now, Phoenix, I feel like they've got the West wrapped up. Do you see them easing off the gas at all? I mean, they have 8 wins over the next highest team in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting spot. My assumption in situations like that is typically that they'll rest guys instead of saying like, oh, we're just gonna have Chris Paul go play 30 minutes or something. It's more likely, I think, that they say like, okay, we'll go play a regular game and then Chris Paul rests the next game or something like that.
Nice. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see if they do pull back minutes for some guys. But okay, Fournier is playing tonight. That's good to know because that seemed like a spot where there's a lot of uncertainty. Okay. Golden State. They rested some of their guys last game, including Draymond Green, Adam Porter, and Klay Thompson. They're all back today. So one of the things I've been kind of puzzling over a little bit is the starting lineup. They started Kevon Looney 2 games ago, but then Otto Porter started the second half. I was thinking maybe that's more for matchup reasons and going up against DeAndre Ayton, maybe they go with Looney. Although now that I'm talking this through, it probably doesn't make a much difference in DFS. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it matters a ton for DFS. If you did get 2 games ago, they started Kuminga in the first half and then Porter in the second half. And then last game was the game everybody was out, so who the hell knows? Yeah, so for now, I guess I assume Kuminga starts, but I don't really know. From a DFS standpoint, I don't think it makes a huge difference. Like, I'm not likely to be playing a bunch of $5,100 Kuminga. If Porter started at 4,500, maybe you get there, but even that I think kind of just ends up being like a, kind of secondary play.
Draymond Green's only 4,900 on FanDuel. Like that seems outrageously low. Like, is he going to be a big part of your lineups on FanDuel?
That seems like a really cheap price tag. Granted, like I know there's a lot of just wildly mispriced guys on FanDuel, so it's still relative, but I think it's likely that you get 28 minutes or so from Green, around a fantasy point per minute at 4,900 looks pretty good. 5,800 on DraftKings I think looks more like where he should be, maybe a little bit underpriced.
Nice. All right, New Orleans at Portland. New Orleans is a 14.5 point favorite. I think that might be the first time we've gotten to say that this season. So the news here, Jonas Valanciunas is questionable. That seems quite significant because there's only 2 10 p.m. games. We might not be able to really take advantage of this one if he is out. But Hernan Gomez, like, man, he barely played the last game. But if he's just the backup center, he could be worth penciling in a little bit. But now that I'm thinking about it, like they also have Larry Nance Jr., who he sometimes played center in previous teams, but he hasn't played much for the Pelicans thus far. So do you see any way to take advantage of Joe Val being questionable?
I think it's really difficult because I think there's just so many question marks here. Like, not only is Joe Val's status in question, but like you were saying, last game Larry Nance was out and you still only got like 3 minutes from Hernan Gomez because they used Jackson Hayes as the backup center behind Valanciunas and basically staggered their minutes. So there's certainly a chance where, like, if Joe Val is in and and you tell me Hernan Gomez is for sure the backup center, I still think he's a decent value at 3,500, even assuming he's playing like 16 to 18 minutes. The problem is just that there's no guarantee because now not only could they just do what they did last game with Jackson Hayes, but they also could just replace Hernan Gomez with Larry Nance and not have any real issue there either. So I think he's still really risky. If Valanciunas is out, I think the starting lineup tells you a lot. If they move Devontae Graham into the starting lineup and start Jackson Hayes at center, you can still gamble on Hernan Gomez and hope that he's playing 16 to 18 minutes off the bench. But obviously, if he's not starting, that doesn't make his minutes very safe. On the other hand, if he is starting, I would be late swapping to as much Hernangomez as I can possibly get to.
Yeah, that's fair. It does seem like Jackson Hayes could get the start at center. He's not cheap enough for that to be a huge change in the slate. So I don't know if this is one we really need to gamble on, Joe Val being out, because you pretty much have to force in guys that don't look very good right now.
Yeah, the thing that concerns me is, like, if you make that gamble, the payoffs could be huge, right? Like, if you say, okay, well, I'm just going to assume Valanciunas sits and I'm going to play Hernangomez, obviously that can pay off really well. But the thing that concerns me is not only do you have to get, basically guess right on Valanciunas, because I don't have a strong lean one way or the other on if he plays, but then you also actually have to, like, guess right on what the Pelicans do with the starting lineup. If I'm going to gamble like that, I really want to be confident that I'm getting paid off if I get Valanciunas ruled out.
Guys, we hit 75K. I just want to say thank you to all of you watching. Like, we really appreciate you. And that's pretty cool that we hit that milestone. But this is all about kind of like making sure that we're all on the right track in DFS, and we're all trying to give you guys the picks. So hopefully, we've been delivering on that as well. But let's talk a few super chats. Running a little bit behind here, so sorry to the Live Before Lock crew. Ricky says, if my ROI is 80% over 4 years, am I considered a pro or lucky AF? I'd say 80% ROI is lucky AF.
I'd say you should jump in the 2K on DraftKings.
Yeah, you're pretty much like on track to be the next Elon Musk at 80%. Yeah. My filler says Theo, okay, see your Ty Jones, Memphis. I think Theo, if Trey Mann's out, I think Theo is going to be really amazing play, where Tyus Jones is a good but not amazing play. So I'd probably lean that way. How about you?
Yeah, I think if Mann is in, I slightly prefer Jones, but if Mann is out, I slightly prefer Theo.
And then
I do think that they're very similar.
Yes, Herder instead. I'd still go with Theo.
Yeah, I'd go with one of the point guards.
Yeah. Okay. Our Rat says Mitchell, Burks, or T Jones and Paul. I'd probably go T Jones, Paul there.
Who's Mitchell? Is that Robinson?
No, it's Sacramento.
Oh, okay.
Davion.
I think Jones, Paul. I don't know. I really like Davion Mitchell though, but I think I would lean Jones, Paul.
Daily Sam says, when is Awesemo going public? Congrats on the 75K. Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't have any news on that, so that'd be pretty cool though. Let's hit on the last team real quick. Portland, they're getting a couple guys back in Greg Brown and Didi Lazuda. So that does make the minutes go down for some other guys. Keon Johnson's kind of popping in value on both DK, but especially FanDuel at 3,900. Do you think they keep the starting lineup the same for this one? And who are you on?
So last game's starting lineup was Williams, Hughes, Ellaby, Keon, and Eubanks. That guess is as good as anything. I have no idea. We do have Greg Brown expected to play. We have Luzada expected to play for, I think, the first time this season for anybody. He was part of the Pelicans trade. So they do have more bodies, which combined with rising price tags makes them a little bit less appealing than they have been. Keon Johnson, like you said, still looks like a decent value. There's still going to be plenty of opportunities for guys like Brandon Williams and Drew Eubanks, but they're all getting to price points where I think it's pretty difficult to really want to roster them on this slate.
Good. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We got a full hour coming up to lock to keep you filled in with Eric and Greg. Shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Make sure to check them out if you haven't already, and you can get a free month of Awesemo Plus. And stay tuned for all the news and info leading you up to lock.
what it is.
You've said dumber things on this show with regularity.
When? I can't remember once.
All right, guys. It is the Awesemo NBA Live Before Lock show. Greg here, joined with Eric, who's never said anything stupid. There's never been a point where he just reads some sort of egregious YouTube handle. None of that has ever happened to Eric Lindquist before. Could it happen to me today? Who's to say? Because I'm hosting. I'm driving the ship. We are sponsored by Prize Picks today. So Eric and I are going to be sticking around for 30 minutes after lock, talking about Prize Picks, talking about Odd Shopper, going over our favorite prop bets of the day. Do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric, master of wisdom, who never says anything erroneous. How are you doing today?
Oh, we got 75,000 subscribers. That seems good. That seems like something to celebrate. Congratulations to everybody here at Awesemo. I was on the stream with Josh when we hit 50,000, and now all of a sudden 75,000 in a year and a half. I like to think maybe I might be partially responsible for 25,000 subs. Maybe. No.
All right,
cool.
We're
awesome.
Already one dumb thing said by Eric Lindquist today. The counter goes up. Will he figure out my name today? Who's to say? We've got a lot to figure out on the program.
I'm old Craig.
So yeah, Eric, who's been friends with me for quite a long time. We've been doing the show together all year. We found out he doesn't know my name yesterday. Here's something else we just recently found out. The starting lineup for the Cleveland Cavaliers will not be featuring Kevin Love, as many of us thought. Moses Brown starting at center. Kevin Love will indeed be coming off the bench. And this is just right away where we have to start. And then we're going to hit on the Pacers news. This is going to be a never ending, just tornado of news that's going to be hitting us as we go along. But first, starting with the Cleveland Cavaliers, what do you make of Moses Brown starting and Kevin Love coming off the bench?
So Moses Brown, we're familiar with going back to OKC last year, then Dallas. And it hasn't necessarily been something where he's been starting at all or really played basketball at all this season. So it might not be a guy people are that familiar with, but there were some massive double-double games last year. And when he does play, he's a 1.13 fantasy point per minute guy. I mean, if you project him for 20 minutes, just 20 minutes, he's a guy that I'm absolutely going to get to at 3,500 over at FanDuel. I know center Jokic is going to be such a strong play over there, but like, this is a different type of situation. DraftKings, he's 3,900, where I think those minutes can, be 20. They could be 16, depending on Love. They could be 25, 26. I mean, no matter what, if he gets the minutes, you're going to want him in your lineup sub 4K. I don't know what those minutes are going to look like. I don't think anybody truly has a great grasp for what they could or couldn't be. What do you kind of have as the rough guesstimate? Because like for me, Kevin Love is off the board on DraftKings. I don't even think we need to talk about him at 6,900. I want to have zero of him, but Moses Brown at 3,900, it's just a minutes thing for me. And I'm just curious how many you're going to give to him.
Yeah, it's tough because we haven't seen Moses Brown get extended minutes with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We obviously haven't seen him start either. I think the most obvious way to look at this is he's a very high upside play with a lot of volatility. Just go back to last year when he was starting with a Thunder team that, didn't have a good roster. They weren't playing for anything. And there was a point in time, do you remember, he looks like one of the better value contracts in the league where he was just crushing a bunch of nights in a row as a chalk play. He actually the last game of last season, Moses Brown, 38 minutes, 24 points, 18 rebounds, 7 blocks, scored 66.5 fantasy points. He started the game before that and scored 17 fantasy points. Like, he was so all over the place in terms of fantasy production that it's hard to know what we're going to get out of him. And we really don't know what the minutes are. I guess I'll give him 20. I still think Kevin Love is in play, though. I'm going to disagree with you on that point. Not as a cash game option anymore. Before, he was just a cash game lock. Now he's somebody who I don't know exactly what to do with his minutes either, but I think he closes over Moses Brown.
Yeah, but 6,900 on DK. I mean, I had him projected for 30 minutes before. I don't know what you had, but I definitely am not going to project him for anywhere close to that. I also think that he's a guy that a lot of people probably had in some lineups over on DK. I still think he probably gets 5, 6, 7%, even in the absence of, the start here. I don't know if that's really what I want to do on an 11-game slate where there's so many pieces later on that I want to get to. A lot of starting lineups we need to get in order to really kind of craft out what our lineups are going to look like, specifically that Houston-Sacramento game. But I'm finding it very difficult for me to even stomach him on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Kevin Love is an absolute headache now. He's 5,300. I got to think that this is going to smash away a lot of the ownership of 27.8% we were looking at. He was going to be one of my core plays over there if he ended up in the starting lineup. He's no longer going to be one of my core plays over there. I just don't know what to do with him yet. So it's going to come down to what that ownership gets as we get closer to lock. Of course, we're going to have a better idea of his ownership than a lot of pieces later in the night. That kind of makes me want to just maybe shy away a little bit more than I was anticipating. But Moses Brown at 3,500 at center, it is a very, very volatile play, but there are so many good, cheap, or underpriced, should I say, studs in terms of like Trae Young, Luka Doncic on FanDuel that I think it's viable to go to 3,500 at the floor with him.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Moses Brown, there's a lot of upside here. I think you should, if you're playing multiple lineups, you're playing him in tournaments. I think you should be getting some exposure to Moses Brown. I'm really curious to see what the ownership looks like here. As for Kevin Love's minutes, I personally still think he plays upper 20s minutes. Before I was projecting him for 32. Now I've lowered that to 28, but there's a chance he still plays the exact same amount of minutes. Like, I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility that Moses Brown plays like 14 minutes and just does kind of like a fake start type thing. Because didn't we see them do this with Ed Davis earlier in the year?
Yeah, but here's the difference. So there's two things. One, Kevin Love, in those two starts that he's had this season, has played 33 and 30. Well, that he's had recently, just thinking of recent slates, he's played 33 and 34 minutes. A starting Kevin Love adds no volatility. But now we just have a massive amount of volatility in terms of what those minutes could be. We've seen him play 17 and 32 as recent as the last two, and both of them were competitive games within 4 points. Both of them, he didn't have foul trouble. Both of them, spots where I anticipated him playing about those high 20s minutes, and they ended up on absolute poles, 32 and 17. I mean, it is a much more volatile play. Again, on DraftKings, I'm going to play zero. I'm not going to play Kevin Love on DraftKings. I think there's just too many power forwards. Jayshawn Tate, KJ Martin, Garuba, Jamaica. I've been trying to wait to say that all day long. And
stupid things today.
It's all right. But I'm looking at Kevin Love as a guy that I can't get to there. But at 5,300 on FanDuel, there's got to be some interest. I'm just shying on the side of maybe not going there. We'll see what the ownership ends up at, because 28 minutes of him at a 1.15 fantasy point per minute producer with decreased ownership sounds pretty fun in tournaments and theoretically, but it's also a really slow paced game against Dallas. Obviously, there's a lot more volatility. We'll see as we get closer.
Yeah, and I was looking through the starts of Ed Davis, because that's what I kind of think is a decent barometer to try to figure out Moses Brown's minutes. And I looked at it and made me upset. It made me upset, Eric. I didn't like what I saw. I was hoping for some sort of confirmation bias.
24, 28, 17 are what I have on my sheet.
Here's what I really don't like about it. The last time Ed Davis started, neither him nor Kevin Love played big minutes. He played 18 minutes, 17 and a half to be exact. Kevin Love played 24. Here's the positive. Kevin Love scored 43 fantasy points in those 24 minutes. Jesus. But it doesn't make me feel great about projecting minutes here. It doesn't make me feel great about it.
It's hilarious that Anderson Varejao is actually in the player pool. I just want to point that out. It's hilarious to me.
When's the last time he played minutes even?
2017 is the correct answer.
Well, there we go. That's interesting that he's in there.
He's in the DraftKings player pool today, but we couldn't get Justin Anderson in the player pool the other day. Riddle me that, Batman. Riddle me that.
Well, the guy, because you got to be prepared in case Anderson Varejao with like multiple torn Achilles just pops up. But
like
anyway,
48 years old.
Kevin Love, Moses Brown, I think are both GPP plays. Really, really difficult to nail down the minutes in case we get a little bit more information there. Let's head on over to the Indiana Pacers, where we now officially have their injury report. Isaiah Jackson out, Chris Duarte out, Malcolm Brogdon out for just the most hilarious reasons. They sat him out for a back-to-back situation. And then after that, they were like, well, he hasn't played in a while, so conditioning, we have to hold him out. And now he's just out forever because he hasn't played the previous game because of conditioning. O'Shea Brissett, that was the most recent name that was ruled out. So now we're going to have a condensed Pacers rotation, although not quite as thin as what it's been in previous games. I assume Goga starts at center. What else are you looking at from the Indiana Pacers for today? Because once again, it's not the same as it was before. We're looking at an 8-man rotation, but I still think there's potential for value. Yeah,
there's potential in Goga. I infamously jammed Goga at 4,900 the other night, where I was just like, play him like 85% or something. He was 5% on a 11-game slate. Now, the news came out much later. It came out at like 3:45 or 3:50 that day on my time, my make-believe time. So 6:45 Eastern time. This is different where I think we kind of have the idea of what needs to happen here. And I think he's the best play on DraftKings, not remotely close, actually, amongst any of these guys. I'm not paying 9,700 for Tyrese Halliburton. Shout out Iowa State. Buddy Hield, absolutely not at 7,300. But Goga sub 6K. If you project him for 30 minutes, he's one of the best plays point per dollar at the position. Obviously, I'm looking at him next to Moses Brown and Nikola Jokic. What planet are we on point per dollar? But that's just what it looks like to me today. Goga is a great, great tournament play. 6%. I want way more than that.
Yeah, let me see if we have updated ownership for any of the news that just broke, because that's something else that I think could inform some of our decisions. We don't have it yet, but let's say that Moses Brown ends up being 1% owned, or Kevin Love ends up being 2%, or vice versa, where they're really popular. I think that's a good way to, just try to differentiate in tournaments, just to try to take advantage of the most amount of volatility possible. We'll talk position by position in a second, but first we do have some questions in our premium Discord channel. First from Supak 00P. Davion Mitchell or Tyrese Halliburton on FanDuel? I prefer Tyrese Halliburton.
On FanDuel, so completely different. Tyrese Halliburton has a broken tag. I project them pretty close, but I think it's Halliburton. I don't think it's that difficult. I just want the guys who project for more raw points. And Davion Mitchell, as good of a play as I think he can be, to add over there. I mean, you're basically, it's like a 4 or 5 point projection difference for me. So I'm going to go Halliburton.
And then the other question we have here, and pretty typical question in terms of how you and I discuss a lot of slates when it comes to late swap, but 2 4 6 3 1. That is his actual name in our Discord chat, asking us, are you guys setting any pre-lock rules to keep maximum flexibility for later? He's going to be playing on FanDuel tonight. I don't think that's necessary for this slate. It's 11 games. There's a lot of options. And even though we have Valanciunas questionable for the last game on the slate, and while that could potentially open up value, I think just the fact that we have Larry Nance Jr. in the picture now totally muddles that entire situation. Because even if Valanciunas is ruled out, I don't know there's going to be somebody who's like, oh my God, there is a must play from the Pelicans. If Larry Nance starts and doesn't have a minutes restriction, he would look good. Jackson Hayes would look better. Maybe Willie Hernan-Gomez starts and he would look better. But it's not like some of these other situations where Valanciunas is out. It's like, oh, we need to lock somebody. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you have to make any sort of specific arrangements to prepare for that scenario.
Yeah, but if you do, and I'm always trying to find late swap opportunities, I found one that's all right. Herbert Jones is 4,600, and we're talking FanDuel, right?
Yeah, it was FanDuel.
Yeah, 4,600 for Herbert Jones. There's an identical tag in Jackson Hayes, and then you're leaving 900 on the table to go down to Hernan-Gomez. I have no interest in playing Larry Nance. We haven't seen him play over 19 minutes yet. He's played 18 and 19 minutes in his two appearances here. Jackson Hayes becomes a guy that I think will play the 5. I think it's pretty likely that he ends up starting. They've really sent Guillermo Hernan-Gomez down the depth chart. I mean, it has been Larry Nance jumping to the forefront. He played 14 and then 3 minutes, that being Hernan-Gomez, in the last 2 that Nance has appeared. There's some major volatility there. Now, you could get a Hernan-Gomez start, but I think it's far less likely, especially with how well Devontae Graham has played in the absence of CJ McCollum. Maybe they want to stagger it a little bit with Brandon Ingram back, but my most likely guess is that you get Devontae Graham starting in place of Jonas Valanciunas, and they just slide Hayes to the 5, in which case your Hernan-Gomez exposure is just shit.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know what is going on with the Goga thing in chat. Did we get an erroneous player card on
I just started timing people out who said he was out. And you know what? Green check marks tell us everything. And we'll see a green check mark there eventually because he's playing. I don't know what people are looking at. Or maybe, Roto, whatever you want to say it is, tweeted out something different. But as it stands right now, the only pieces of news I have on my iPad are Patrick Peterson signs a 1-year deal with the Minnesota Vikings, and then O'Shea Brissett ruled out. O'Shea Brissett's ruled out, not Goga.
Yeah. So DraftKings did say that Goga was ruled out, which is bad information. Also why we joke about the green check marks. Don't get your news from DraftKings. Right. Don't get your news from FanDuel. Get your news from us, your trusted friends, Eric and Greg. Get your news from News God. There's a reason they call him News God, because he's the god of news. He creates the news. If Woj wants to report a trade, he texts News God and asks him if it happened or not.
In Mexico, he's known as the Newsday God.
No, it's El News God, I believe.
Oh, there we go. Negro Loco, the man.
And Yeah, go. No concerns there. I understand where people made that mistake. Just don't look at DraftKings for news. It's never a good source. Super chat here from Michael McKinney. Booker or Butler and Young or Murray for FanDuel cash. So first Booker or Butler and then Young or Murray, Eric.
I mean, Young and Murray on FanDuel for cash. Is that what they're saying?
Young or Murray.
Oh, you should play Trae Young in cash. He's 800 less. Put that 800 to work somewhere else on FanDuel for cash. I'm looking at it here. Booker or Butler? I'm going to say got to be Butler. I mean, Booker with Chris Paul back. It's just not as enticing as it was once upon a time in a land far away. They're playing Golden State, not my favorite place to target. Much more likely, yes, I know Miami is up against Boston defensively. I really don't care. Jimmy Butler's the more underpriced one. Yeah,
and I mean, it's the way he asked the question. Those are players that are in, fairly different price ranges. So I think Murray should be projected for more fantasy points than Trae Young, but I think that Trae Young's a higher priority in cash games. He's also going to be really popular. Same goes with Jimmy Butler. Underpriced. I think
cash is the most self-explanatory thing I've ever seen in like FanDuel history. You're playing Luka Doncic. You're playing Jayshawn Tate. You're probably playing Karis LeVert and Nikola Jokic. Those are the four. Go from there. That's like the easiest cash start. For me, the next guy that kind of slides in is Trae Young. I'd rather play him over Davion Mitchell. It's a pretty negative difference in ownership. And Trae Young, just get to the top and the bottom in terms of salary here. A lot of these mid-range plays you just don't really need to go to unless they are just smash plays. Kevin Love got taken off the board. You're probably going to a De Vincenzo in the absence of everything in that game environment or something like that in the mid-fives to kind of make up for it. And then Keon Johnson, kind of another fundamental core play in terms of cash for FanDuel purposes as a punt. So be punting with some of those guys. Play a lot of those 10K guys. Shouldn't be that hard today.
Another super chat from D Owens 89. He's asking Love and Young, so I assume Kevin Love and Trae Young, or PJ Washington and Luka Doncic for a FanDuel GPP.
All right. Let me find this one just so I can see it on the screen. Definitely don't want oh God, this is so hard because PJ Washington, not really a guy that I was considering all that much today. But when we're talking about Kevin Love now, I'm still going to prefer Kevin Love to PJ Washington. And I love Trae Young. So I'm going to go to the first one, as weird as that is.
Yeah, I just don't like PJ Washington. Yeah. And, Kevin Love is highly volatile now, but there's still considerable upside there. And here's what's difficult about the question. Of those four players, Luka is my favorite by far. And of those four players, PJ Washington is my least favorite by far.
Yep. By far.
I'm going to side with the first one.
Yep. Same.
We are all caught up on Super Chats. Let's try to get in some position by position talk here, Eric. But first, if you guys haven't checked out our premium betting picks Discord, you could sign up using the link in the description box below. It's something that pays for itself. We keep track of all our records. It's been profitable so far. Get access to it for $25 a week. Once again, you can sign up using the link in the description box below. Also, follow our @Awesemo Bets Twitter account. We're giving out some free bets from our premium betting Discord. Now, Eric, let's start by just talking big picture, looking at the guards. 11 game slates. There are a lot of options here, but who are the guards you're prioritizing the highest today?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just going to be drastically different for me site to site. Talking about the spend ups first, Luka Doncic on FanDuel is a smash. He's 12K now. This is different than even what we had yesterday. And coming off of a massive ceiling game at 20%, I'm far more likely to spend my money at Nikola Jokic at center. I mean, 12-4 for him. I can make that work pretty easily. Plus, there's a lot of these mid-range guards on DraftKings, whether it's Teo Maledon or, as we work down the board a little bit further, Davion Mitchell is still a guy that I might have exposure to on DraftKings as well as FanDuel, as crazy as that is at his current tag. I mean, he's 20% over on DK at 7,600, where he has shooting guard eligibility. Still might get to some of him over there, but just Luka Doncic, because of the positionality, I mean, Nikola Jokic is just a spend up, like probably the easiest spend up period. I am floored. And I know you probably will be too, that he's only 16% on this slate because I find him so easy to get to on DraftKings with all of the value we have at forward and then so many good mid-tier guard plays. I don't think Luka Doncic matters nearly as much there as what he matters over on FanDuel, where I can play him at shooting guard He's way underpriced there. It's just kind of a joke. So I'm really finding myself playing a lot of Luka on FanDuel and almost zero on DraftKings. Trae Young is a smash on FanDuel as well at 10K. Really hard for me to pay up to 11K from on DraftKings. Same reason that we talked about before. I'm just really flooding this mid-range on DraftKings in my 150 there. So really finding it very easy to get off of the top end there. Whereas on FanDuel, you just have to play those guys.
Yeah, so this should come as no surprise if I'm spending up for somebody today. Guess who that fella is.
I mean, we've just been banging the drum for Nikola Jokic MVP for months, and he's just a smash. He's a smash today.
Yeah, so to me, if you're playing a lot of Luka, the opportunity cost is Nikola Jokic. I would rather be playing Nikola Jokic. And there are, like you said, particularly on DraftKings, and this is where DK and FanDuel are going to be different. There are so many good mid-range plays that I look at over on DK. Kevin Porter Jr., Tyus Jones, Teo Maledon, Brandon Ingram has shooting guard eligibility, and he's somebody who I think has a pretty good amount of upside now, assuming that minutes restriction is starting to come off. Keon Johnson, he's kind of on the cheap end. He's 4,700 now on DraftKings, so the salary has come up. He's cheaper on FanDuel, but he's hard to avoid because he played over 40 minutes last game. It was an overtime game, but still, he was playing high 30s minutes, so that game didn't go to overtime. You could be total shit as a fantasy producer. And if you're getting that kind of minutes, and if he's scoring like 0.6 fantasy points per minute, he's still going to pay off his salary. So I look at Keon Johnson as somebody, just the amount of opportunity he has right now, he's one of the better plays on the slate as well. So those are the guys that
for FanDuel purposes, where again, I listed off how many guys are underpriced at guard there. I can play at least one, maybe two of them alongside Jokic. And you play Keon Johnson, you play Jayshawn Tate, you play KJ Martin, you play some of these guys at other positions. And it just becomes so easy to get up to the top end there. On DraftKings, completely different. As you said, my highest owned guard right now is Tyus Jones. And I just think that people are just completely overlooking him today. I'm going to play a crazy amount of him on DraftKings. And so I'll let everybody else try to go up to Luka and make that work. I'm just going to have a different build.
Yep, that's total. And Luka isn't crazy popular or anything like that, but just to reiterate, talking point from it, it's pretty common. I don't understand how he's more popular than Nikola Jokic. Positionality aside, Jokic has just been such a good fantasy producer this year. I think he should be more rostered than Luka today, and I'm perfectly fine with making that kind of pivot. So I want to ask you about Brandon Ingram, who's vastly different looking on FanDuel compared to DraftKings. So that's why I think that we could kind of talk about him more as a guard here, because DraftKings, he's shooting guard, small forward eligible. FanDuel, he's only small forward. Also, he's $8,800 on FanDuel as opposed to $73 on DK. So there's a couple of things here working for Brandon Ingram. First of all, the matchup against the Portland Trailblazers couldn't get any easier. This team is nothing but replacement level players. He's way priced down. He played 26 minutes his first game coming back from injury. He hadn't played for an extended period of time. It's a pretty good amount of playing time for a first game back. What do you anticipate in terms of the amount of run that he could get for today?
Yeah, it was kind of like the way that I talked about Paul George there for a little bit, where I'm like, if you landed on him, like, we don't know what those minutes are when it's not a lower body injury this isn't the same situation. We already saw one game. It was nice to see the minutes allotment that existed there. And now Brandon Ingram today, I don't completely hate it. I have 5% on DK. He's not a priority. I know the shout out. It's an 11-game slate. I do like that he's in the very last game of the night as well. I think that always goes overlooked in terms of like really recommending a play. Brandon Ingram can turn into somebody else too if you need to. So I don't mind being higher in tournaments on guys like that, where if I end up with a 7,300 Ingram, sounds great. There's just other guys I'd rather get to. I'd rather get to CJ McCollum in that same game at 8,800. I don't read into narratives that much, but you can't tell me CJ McCollum going back to Portland. Not necessarily. Thank God he's out of Portland. It's kind of been a dumpster fire this year for him. New Orleans hasn't been a whole heck of a lot better, but something tells me sub 9K CJ McCollum, there's still some meat on that bone for that price tag, even alongside Ingram. He's been playing such a heavy distribution role for this team that I think the double interest is definitely there on a site like DraftKings. So I'm above the field on McCollum, less so on Ingram, but I totally get your logic there.
Yeah, and so 26 minutes last game. I think we're going to see probably 30-ish minutes, and he's so priced down. Also, he looked really healthy last game, not just in terms of how
he ripped up the Lakers. If you watch that game, the Lakers they're inept, but that whole second half, it was Trey Murphy and him just going nuts on the Lakers.
Yeah, and he played 26 minutes, but he scored 41.75 DraftKings points in those minutes. The key to me here, though, 35.8% usage rate. So just immediately, he felt good. He was getting involved in the offense. And just because of that salary reduction, the last time we saw him play before getting hurt, he was 8,300. So we're just seeing $1,000 price decrease. And I think the role shouldn't be that much change because it's not like he's a guy that was typically going out and playing 38 minutes or anything like that. His games prior to getting hurt, he played 30 minutes, 32 minutes, 31. He played 26 last game. And I think he's probably going to be more or less in line with what he was playing before. So I think that I like getting to Brandon Ingram. We have some questions to answer, but first, a key piece of news just came out, Eric. Tre Mann will not be playing today because why would he? Why would the Thunder even remotely risk a chance at potentially winning a game? Why even risk it? Why roll the dice? So we're going to have, and they weren't going to win this game in all likelihood.
They won the
anyway.
game in Portland.
Yeah. Well, Portland's a different story. We're just looking at replacement level players versus replacement level players. The Hawks, who are looking to win games right now, they were most likely going to be winning this game as 12.5-point favorites. But now that Tre Mann is out, we've got that same sort of situation from last game where just really short rotation, all of the usage available, all of the playing time available. This is going to have to make Theo Maledon look better, which is going to lead me to a question that we just got in our Discord channel, which came from, here it was, Mr. Moneybags. Tyus Jones or Theo Maledon in a DK GPP. How do you answer that now that Tre Mann has been ruled out?
Play a lot of both. I mean, if you're looking for one, I mean, how chalky is your lineup? I know that seems like a stupid answer, but like, depending on the size of the GPP, depending on what it is, I mean, Theo Maledon, I'm going to project for more fantasy points than Tyus Jones slightly, but there's going to be such an ownership discrepancy between the two. I just love Tyus Jones for tournaments. I'm going to have tons of both of those guys. I'm just peppering this mid-range, and they're both guys that I just find it impossible not to play lots of. The huge difference is that everybody saw what Theo Maledon and this OKC team did absent everybody last game. Of course, this is an Atlanta team, not that they're extra more competent or anything, but they're 12-point dogs in this spot. There's a better chance for failure, but they only have so many guys playing that all these guys have to play quite a bit. I mean, Pokashevsky was already a fantastic play. Maledon, 5,700, identical number to Tyus Jones. But I don't think people, I'll just give my Tyus Jones pitch for why he's an absolute jam for me on DraftKings today. I don't think people understand how many uncompetitive games the Memphis Grizzlies have played since Ja Morant has been out of the lineup. Since he disappeared, that would be the 20th of March. They won a game by over 20 against Houston. They won by 12 against Brooklyn, where the starters didn't close. They played against Indiana, won by 30. They beat Milwaukee by 25, and then they beat Golden State by almost 30. This is ridiculous. Tyus Jones, I'm still, for the however manyth game in a row, I'm projecting for 32 minutes. That's the identical number I have Theo Maledon projected for. Sure, Maledon gets a little bit of a bump, but I mean, Tyus Jones has continued to be over a fantasy point per minute player in the absence of Morant. You're almost talking about an identical play, but there's going to be such an ownership discrepancy that, yeah, I'm going to play a lot of Maledon, but I'm going to play even more Tyus Jones.
Yeah, I don't know this information offhand, so I'm about to look it up. Would you guess, and once again, this isn't me like trying to set you up, I don't know the answer. Would you guess the Grizzlies have been better with Morant on or off the court this year?
Off. I'm pretty sure they've been better off. I mean, I know that they're 18-2 without Morant this season, something stupid like that. And now they get Dylan Brooks back, which isn't great, but go ahead.
It is not even close. When he is on the court, they are outscoring opponents by 4.4 points per 100 possessions. When Ja Morant is off the court this year, they're outscoring opponents by 8.3 points per 100 possessions. Like this team crushes without Ja Morant. Does that say anything about Tyus Jones? About Tyus Jones or Ja Morant individually as players? No, Ja Morant is still really good, but he's not that integral to the Grizzlies' regular season success because they are so deep. And eventually they're going to play in closer games where Tyus Jones is just going to have to play extended minutes. That generally hasn't been the case. This game, though, they're playing a Spurs team that all of a sudden I thought the Lakers, like why would they even have to care about these regular season games? They're going to be in the play-in mix. And all of a sudden the Lakers they couldn't literally lose every game, though. Like they had to win one game every once in a while and they just lose every single night. So now as a result, the Spurs have the chance to pass the Lakers in the standings with a win today. They're ahead of them via the tiebreaker right now at the same record. If they win this game against Memphis, then they would move a half game ahead. So this should be a somewhat competitive game. The spread is only 6.5. So I do like the playing time upside there for Tyus Jones.
It's a better spread than we've seen in a while. I mean, the Golden State team wasn't remotely the same kind of team that they've been this entire season without Steph. I don't think Clay or anybody else. It was basically Jordan Poole to go try to win us a game. That didn't happen. Again, 32 minutes, identical projection to Teo Maledon, but the ownership discrepancy is absurd to me. It's absurd.
All right, let's hit on. So I agree. Play both of them now.
Yeah, play both.
I don't think you have to choose one or the other. Get plenty of exposure to both. Some super chats to catch on here. First from Nelson Resto. DK, would you play Mitchell and De Vincenzo together?
Yes. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, they're in the same game environment. Davion Mitchell is getting his value in a number of ways. I mean, he's been assisting at a high clip, 9 assists in 3 of his last 4. That can work out well in a distribution role as well. I mean, I wouldn't go overboard, but it's not something that I'm even going to be factoring in at all. So the answer would be yes for me.
So here's the caveat I have here. I think De Vincenzo is okay at 5,300, but now that we have the OKC value, now that we have, we already had guys like Tyus Jones who on our roster. Tyus Jones also, for whatever reason, DraftKings fan refused to price this guy up. But I think the other thing to consider here is there's just better plays than De Vincenzo at this point. At my build right now, he's in my player pool, but I only have about 5% of them. I think there's better guys to get to than De Vincenzo. Is he a priority for you at all?
De Vincenzo is not a priority, but I'm saying that I'm getting to him. He's a guy that I have in my pool, and I'm going to get to, he's 17% on FanDuel. I think he's a little bit underpriced at 5,300, but I can say that about 50 guys on this slate. I'd prefer to find some of the guys that aren't not garnering as much ownership. He just seems to be a guy that is already appropriately owned because that game basically has a big highlighter on it saying play all of these dudes.
Got the Pacers starting lineup: Halliburton, Hield, Terry Taylor, Justin Anderson, Goga Bitadze. Not the starting lineup I was expecting. I didn't have any real anticipation of the starting lineup for Indiana because they do, different stuff every day. Let's see. Terry Taylor, where is he?
I'm lucky that this is exactly what I had in for my lineup: Halliburton, Hield, Taylor, Anderson, and then Goga. But Taylor, I still didn't find myself getting to a ton of. He's 4,400. We had him projected around 28 minutes here at Awesemo. I think that's about perfect. He does not look like some of these value pieces in the mid-range at guard, and forward. There's just such an easier, it's so much easier for me to get down to the cheap end. You talked about the Pelican situation. I'm not completely writing it off. If we get that news before that 8:30 p.m. Eastern time tip-off for Houston, Sacramento, I'm going to try to get some exposure to the likes of Herbert Jones or Jackson Hayes or some of these other guys, but they're definitely not priorities as it stands right now. And so I think Terry Taylor's all right to get to, but I'm not going nuts to get him into a lot of lineups over on DK. On FanDuel, he's shooting guard only 4K. I think you can definitely play him there.
I like him on both sides. He's been a good fantasy producer this year. I guess the one thing that's maybe a little bit of a concern is previous starts we saw, he had to play center. He's only 6'5", but they were so devoid of big men that they just threw him out there and had him play center. I have to assume his rebound rate will go down now that he's playing alongside actual big men. So overall, as a starter this year, he has played 33 minutes per game and averaged 33 fantasy points. So fantasy point per minute. I don't know that we could count on that same kind of production. But either way, there's better value plays, but Terry Taylor's another guy I think that's worth having in 15 to 20% of lineups.
Totally. Yeah, I'm going to play him on FanDuel. DK was kind of where I just think it's easier to play other guys. I think that came out early enough. He'll get some attention. He always seems to get a lot of attention. People love to play this guy. So Terry Taylor is going to be an easy click for a lot of people. I might not just get there in a crazy amount.
We have a super chat here from Adi Balagun. He's asking, any groups on FanDuel for Houston? That is a no from me. Have you made any groups? Yeah, not necessary.
They're so cheap, and they're so cheap. You can just play them all together. If you made me, you could probably dip the projection on if you put Garuba, Tate, and KJ Martin into a group and you wanted to reduce the projection when 2 show up in a lineup or when 1 shows up in a lineup, you could do it, but I think it's pretty unnecessary.
Got another super chat here from Mike L. Mitchell and Eubanks or Young and Okiki for his FanDuel lineup. I prefer Young and Okiki. How about you?
Okeke is interesting because I've had a pretty love-hate relationship with this guy. There's days where I've really gone overboard and he's panned out well. Then it seems like he just burns me the next time out. Eubanks is really expensive on FanDuel now, right? From what I remember, he's like 8,100, I think is the tag, or 7,500.
75.
That's still doable over there. He's 8,100 on DK is where he's at there. I probably like the young Okeke side a little bit more simply because it goes into that build where I'm saying stars and scrubs on FanDuel, more hammering and peppering the mid-range plus Jokic on DK.
You know what trips me up a little bit when it comes to Eubanks is the Blazers signed Reggie Perry to a 10-day contract 2 days ago. And I don't know that he's going to come in and play big minutes. I assume he's going to be part of the rotation, though, don't you?
Yeah, at some point, he's got to play some minutes. Plus, I mean, Eubanks is on his, fourth 10-day deal? Fifth 10-day deal? I mean, good for you. He's making $100K every single time that 10 deal shows up, but I don't really know what the goal is for him long-term. Why not just have Reggie Perry out there? The goal is tanking right now. The goal is not winning for Portland. They've shown no interest in doing it. That's why they're 14-point home dogs in this spot because it's just gotten outrageous. So I do not see a whole lot of hope for Eubanks being a guy that's going to put up 60 like you saw against inept OKC team doing the exact same thing as them.
Is that the actual value of a 10-day contract?
I believe it's the value of his because I was going through those contracts the other night. I had posted on Twitter where I was just curious who the highest paid player was because I was obviously watching the Portland OKC game like any DFS fan would.
Yeah.
And found out that I guessed Keon Johnson was probably it. Pokashevsky was the highest paid player in that game at $3 million a year, which is like egregious when you think about an NBA product game having $3 million a year being your highest paid player when like 15, 20 guys are hitting the floor.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so weird. Like, why don't they just play young guys they have on the roster? They really need to be running out like Chris Dunn and Drew Eubanks and now Reggie Perry on 10-day contracts. Either way, the bigger point when it comes to these 10-day contracts is just considering how much run they've been willing to give to Chris Dunn and Drew Eubanks. Is Reggie Perry all of a sudden like he's where they draw the line? Like we can't play Reggie Perry any minutes on a 10-day contract. But then I think you have to figure out like, okay, if he's going to be in the rotation, where do those minutes come from? And I just don't think we see like 38 minutes or anything like that from Drew Eubanks again.
Well, let's find the actual value of what they are paying Reggie Perry. You can go to.
Well, we're short on time, so let's.
Oh yeah. No, I'll just find it super quick. I've almost got it here. Okay. I am at. So Drew Eubanks is making $99,380 per 10-day contract. He's on his fourth one of that, so I got that exactly right. $100K. We just got paid $53,000 for Reggie Perry to come in and exist. So there you go.
Which would be a lot of money to pay him to not play at all. I know it's different than like our money versus NBA money, but why pay him at all if you're not going to play him?
Awesemo's going to make more tonight than Reggie Perry got for 10 days of work.
Probably true. Another super chat right here from Michael Pizzulli. Hey guys, can you rank the following for FanDuel? Maladon, Van Vliet, Mitchell, Tyus Jones. Thanks.
All right, let me just see the list.
Maladon, Van Vliet, Mitchell, Tyus Jones.
So for tournaments, I'm going to be going Tyus, Maladon, Van Vliet, Mitchell.
Yeah, by the way, all those guys are good options.
They're all great. But I'm going to have more Tyus Jones at 5,800 than I'm going to have Maladon at 61 or 63, I believe his number is. So I'm just playing the ownership game big time with that.
All right, we are caught up on super chats now. So let's hit on forwards now and just who are your highest priority players at forward? We can't really talk about everybody just considering that it's a big slate and there's a lot of options here. For me, first of all, I'm going to start with KJ Martin's a really high priority play. Pokashevsky, massively high priority play now that we have Trey Mann out. He was already going to be somebody to get to, now even more so because it's going to be that same situation we saw from Pokashevsky last game. The usage is available, the rebounds, the playmaking. He shot 4 of 11 from the field last game, still scored nearly 40 fantasy points. He's going to play a ton of minutes. Kristaps Porzingis being another one. So those to me are some of the top overall forward options on DraftKings. Then on FanDuel, I think we could also add Karis LeVert to the mix because he has small forward eligibility. He's only 5,200. He remains in the starting lineup. Eric, who are the guys you're really building around as forwards?
So we just got a weird piece of news I'm going to touch on because Dante De Vincenzo is coming in with a lot of attention. Jeremy Lamb just got upgraded back to a game time decision. What in the world? I thought he was already ruled out and apparently not. I was just kind of assuming that you were going to get some more Justin Holiday. I think this is just not a great thing for Dante De Vincenzo. They've been playing him pretty much capped out at 32 minutes for the last week and a half. I don't know if I want to be going overboard with Dante De Vincenzo, 0.84 fantasy point per minute producer over the course of all situations from Milwaukee to Sacramento this season. Of course, this is a different situation, so you do expect him to still be there, but he's garnering a lot of attention, knowing that I'm pretty much capped at 32 minutes and there's a possibility of Jeremy Lamb possibly showing back up again here. I'm going to shy away from 25%. I had talked about him being a guy that was in my player pool, somebody I was getting to a little bit of. I definitely want to be below 25%, but Pokusevski, I do not. 20.4% for him. We have him projected for almost 40 fantasy points. And as you said, that game, he turned into kind of a distributor towards the end of it. It was a garbage basketball game. Definitely one of the worst basketball games I've ever seen, but cheering for overtime, getting it, and then realizing it was a bad thing for me wasn't that enjoyable. But Pokusevski's somebody that there's no way that you don't like getting to him at that number. I know you had talked about Brandon Ingram being a guy for me. Keon Johnson, shooting guard, small forward on DK. That's somebody to look at getting to quite a bit. And then the last piece that I really want to get your opinion on, I think Miles Bridges is being slept on a little bit at 7,800. Not that he's some incredible, he's 4.7%. There's a lot of these guys that exist on this slate, but you made your case for Ingram. Not saying that Miles Bridges is going to put up 60 or 70 like he did last time he played in Madison Square Garden, but this is a game against the Knicks where, the Knicks need to keep winning basketball games. It's a 2-point spread. It's 7,800. He's sub 8K. I just feel like at forward, there aren't a lot of tournament guys that are on the expensive end. Like Tatum, I'm really not getting to at all. The ownership's kind of pretty meh on it here, but I'm looking at a guy like him at 7,800 that could just be a massive difference maker. He's had extreme range of outcomes, but he's been much more consistent in recent games. High 30s minutes, checks a lot of boxes. I think at 7,800 is a great tournament play.
I want to backtrack on the Jeremy Lamb thing. I don't think anything's changed with him.
Okay.
He was doubtful earlier and he's still doubtful.
Oh, okay. I just saw update game time decision and that's stupid and maybe upset.
So game time decision.
I don't know if y'all have this also. Sorry, Greg. Alex Lynn just got ruled back in for me. I don't know if y'all are seeing that, but I'm seeing it in chat some too. I'm seeing it on my end, but
yeah, Len is listed as available to play. But as for the Jeremy Lamb situation, he's still listed as doubtful. I don't really care when somebody's a game time decision. I care about the injury designation. So if he's doubtful, I just assume he doesn't play.
Good. Well, just wanted your confirmation on that. Then that's fine. If Lenley got ruled back in, I mean, it's not like he's been playing big minutes. Damian Jones is still going to play 26 minutes. I think he's still all right to get to at 12.7% on DK. Not my favorite.
Yeah, I was already not really getting too much of Damian Jones and whatever. Alex Len's probably.
And I'm a Damian Jones stan. Like I like him from fantasy purposes. I've had some good nights. It's a weird thing to be.
I like him when he's 1% owned and he ends up starting as a late scratch we could swap to. Like in general, I'm not just playing a lot of Damian Jones though. Super chat here from Cheyenne DeWald. Super late just got here. FanDuel question: is Love a must play? And how do you feel about Metu? And also favorite spend up option. All right. So 3 parts to talk about. Is Kevin Love a must play? No, Kevin Love is not a must play now that he's coming off the bench. Still a player with tournament upside. Current ownership on him ended up falling at, he's 16% owned right now in tournaments. Let me refresh to make sure I'm looking at the most recent number.
I think it's number 6% on FanDuel.
Oh, is it 6%? So I was looking at an older number. 5.4%. Every time we talk, the number goes down. We mentioned him like 3 more times. He's going to be 0% owned.
Sorry, I've just refreshed now too. 5.7 was my last run as I was kind of updating stuff.
Far from a must play. I want to be overweight to that 5.4% number.
Yeah, this is why tournaments are beautiful. Yeah. I think I'm going to play like 7-8% over on FanDuel. I'm not going to get anything crazy there. There's a lot of other really good plays, but he was somebody that I was planning on jamming on FanDuel and then not starting. I have my hesitation, but if you're going to take 4 minutes off, you're also taking 22% of ownership off the table. I'm willing to fire up a little bit of love.
Next part of the question from Cheyenne was, how do we feel about Metu? Metu is somebody who I really do think takes more of a hit now that Alex Len's back in the picture. Mm-hmm. It's going to depend what the starting lineup looks like, but Metu is not a priority for this slate.
He won't be in more than like 2% of my lineups, maybe.
And then the last part of the question, favorite spend-up option on FanDuel, that is Luka Doncic. For FanDuel purposes, DraftKings, it's still going to be Jokic for me, but FanDuel is just different because there's only one spot we could play Jokic, and there's just so many spots to play Luka. And so I think by default, it becomes Luka on FanDuel.
Agreed.
Let's see. Are we caught up on super chats now? Yes, we are. And by the way, also, if anything changes with the injury status of Jeremy Lamb, then it'll be a different situation. As of right now, he's still listed as doubtful to play. All right. So forwards now, I want to ask you about the Houston Rockets front court situation. We could also use this to transition into center at the same time as well. No Christian Wood, no Şengün. How do you think they're going to allocate the center minutes? The guy I have the most exposure to right now is KJ Martin. I know a lot of people also like Usman Garuda. You made some dumb rhyme about him at the top of the show. So
Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, I want to take it to Bermuda.
You're
it's pretty good.
And
F off, Tyler. You're fine.
Are you playing him now? Because you have to be obligated. If you came up with a song, you kind of have to be obligated, right?
He's 3,500 on FanDuel. I think he could. I think there is a non-zero chance that he starts.
I agree with that. I have him. I mean, I prefer KJ Martin, though. I think KJ Martin's the guy who I feel much more secure giving the minutes to. The other thing also is I think Bruno Fernando is going to play center minutes. I think KJ Martin,
we don't
Usman
talk
Garuda,
about Bruno. No.
Are you going to have a song for every player on the Houston Rockets?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead. Kevin Porter Jr.
I want KPJ. I don't know.
All right. Deshaun Nix. Or is it Dacian next?
I don't know. My brain is like, how do I even go to Dacian?
Yeah. Too bad they don't have Mo Bamba. That would have been an easy one for you. That could have been a layup.
Blue Deschanel.
Yeah. So the front court situation for this team, though, Kenyon Martin could play multiple positions. We could see him play small forward, power forward, center minutes. I think Usman Garuba and Bruno Fernando are both going to be in the rotation, but probably solely playing center minutes. So it's hard for me to project these two guys to play a ton, and I want to get to Kenyon Martin Jr. Kenyon Martin Jr., are you rostering him, or is your favorite player actually Usman Garuba?
No, it's I'm with you. I'm kind of surprised that everybody's just jamming. I think people just realize that Tate has been the starter most of the year and that kind of works out well. KJ Martin is going to have to play 26, 28 minutes here in that spot. That's not too far away from what you're looking at for Tate here. I have him projected for 24 fantasy points and on FanDuel at 3,900. That makes more sense for me. On DK, he's sub 4K. That makes more sense to me. Like Tate is going to garner a lot of attention. I don't think people understand how much our ownership projections are as good as it gets. They are the best in the industry. 39% right now for Jae'Sean Tate on FanDuel. That's just something that I don't know. I think it's pretty easy to trim a lot of the ownership in your lineup going to a 16% KJ Martin at a cheaper tag with almost identical minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to be on KJ Martin. Also, I just got news. It looks like we have a copyright violation that's been filed against us by the Beach Boys. They think we're ripping them off.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
That was not the appropriate time to play that.
Sometimes maybe shit. That was the wrong time.
That was the wrong time to play that.
48 opportunities for it, and you just Tyler.
It gets jumpy with those buttons.
Rate it in.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense in that context. And when Eric sings, it's sometimes maybe shit, sometimes maybe shit. There's no other variable there. Another super chat from Arturo Valdez. What do you do with a large delta in a player's projections between Awesemo and Fantasy Cruncher? Roby is projected for 27.2 on Fantasy Cruncher and 38.18 on Awesemo. From my personal opinion, I think our projections are much better than what they have there. So I would go towards ours. Also, I think that, let's see, where do I have Roby? Yeah, I have Roby at a little under 37. So I think the 38.18 number is much more accurate than 27.2. And I'm not even sure the 27.2 is taking Trey Mann being out into consideration. So I like Roby a lot. I tend to lean towards our projections. Do you have anything to follow up with that on, Eric?
No, sometimes they'll have like an average of it. I really don't pay much attention to what they do for their projections. I look at ours. I end up calculating some of mine. I'll do some aggregation once in a while, but for the most part, it's pretty clear cut. Like, don't always be using them. They might not update in real time. We have guys behind the scenes. That's the best part about being part of Awesemo Plus is they do all the work for you. That if you have 15, 20 minutes before a slate locks in a sport like NBA, like if you have all day, like we do, because it's our job, like that's great. You'll have an opportunity to really utilize the tools to their max. But the fantasy point projections are getting constantly updated to account for news. Use those more than you'll use anywhere else, and you'll be better off.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we have the best projections in the industry, so I would go with what we have. Also, something that we have some of the best of when it comes to just our overall DFS packages, some of the great deals and discounts we have. And we have a new one where you get exclusive Awesemo discounts and the first crack at beta testing new tools and features by joining our Awesemo MVP text program. Sign up by texting MVP to 1-660-656-4417. I hope Tyler put the number up on the screen because I don't think people are going to remember that. 660-656-4417. You'll automatically be entered to win a year of Awesemo Plus Platinum. For more information, you can also click on the link in the video description below. All right, a few minutes left here, so let's just do a quick roundup of the center position. DraftKings, very easy, in my opinion, to pay up for Nikola Jokic. I think that if you have the ability to pay up for anybody, you're going to Jokic. I like him on FanDuel as well, but there's a lot of other center options to like on FanDuel when you can only play one center. It makes it a little bit hard to just jam like 60, 70% of Jokic. I find it easier to do on DraftKings. Outside of Jokic, who are the centers that you're prioritizing, Eric?
Talked about Goga. I think he really stands out for me on both sites. I mean, he's 5,600 on FanDuel. I'm finishing up everything over there as we're talking. I did end up on quite a bit of Terry Taylor, so I want to amend some of that in the last 4 minutes. Ended up around 28% of him. That's almost exactly with the field, but that's just kind of the way that it turned out for me, and I'm fine with it. I'm looking at Goga as just being like a centerpiece of my lineups kind of everywhere. I will say Bam Adebayo is a guy that I'm getting to a surprising amount of. I didn't really come into this slate anticipating playing like almost any of him, but with no Robert Williams there, I don't think people really understand what kind of a ceiling could exist against like, Al Horford, he's serviceable, Grant Williams, whatever. But like Bam Adebayo is the true center that's going to be out there doing a lot of work. I ended up projecting him for north of 40 fantasy points. That's getting me around 20% of him, which again, I had no anticipation of getting to a lot of him. He's sub 5% on DraftKings. I think he's a really nice, sneaky tournament option to get to, just with the lack of front court depth they're going to have there in the absence of Robert Williams going forward.
Got a couple more super chats to answer really quick before the end of the before we get to lock. But Eric and I, once again, we're going to be sticking around 30 minutes talking about prize picks, talking about Odd Chopper, finding our best prop bets of the entire slate. Also, guys, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. A lot of news has been going on, so haven't had the time to ask for likes and subs. Do me a favor, do it now, so I look good when we're looking at the data in hindsight. Super chats to get to now. First from Gray, KJ Martin and Bam or Tate and Randle for FanDuel single entry. I prefer KJ Martin and Bam personally.
I agree. Again, Bam is a guy I really like for this slate, and I really hadn't really thought about him a whole heck of a lot, but this is why the projections just let it do some of the work for you. I couldn't believe that I was getting to as much just because of the Celtics in the absence of Robert Williams. They're just not going to be the same defensive team. They've been incredible. Number one in defensive efficiency in the NBA. Didn't see that happening after their start to this season, but they got Marcus Smart back. They got a number of their core pieces back here, but now Robert Williams is going to be out for some time. I think it regresses at the center position.
Another super chat from Justo. D'Lo and Edwards correlation. Yeah, it's negative, and I don't think either of them are massively great plays for this slate.
Greg, sometimes you do things that are funny. That was funny.
Oh, by the way, Joey Corman, I don't know if you saw our group text, but he sent us a message. All the other kids picking Dacian Knicks. That's a good one. Joey's clever.
Wow. But here's the thing. He had forever to think about it, so it's not really fair to me.
No,
who's on
that's
a stream
true.
In the moment.
Yeah, and he probably cheated, looked up, somebody else already wrote that somewhere.
What rhymes with what? He got to the thesaurus. He did the whole thing. I can already play out what that cheating bastard did.
Yeah, we know his tricks. You're not fooling us, Joey Corman.
I know your tricks, Dewey.
Yeah, we know we know how the internet goes crazy with Dacian Knicks parody songs. We know you took that from somebody. That's all people do on Twitter. We've got a question in our premium Discord channel from Jets World. Any Capella love tonight on DK? I think that Clint Capella is worth having double-digit exposure to on both FanDuel and DraftKings. There's a lot of guys out for the Hawks, and we're finally starting to see the minutes for Clint Capella. Back-to-back games with over 30 minutes. I can't remember the last time we saw him go consecutive games playing over 30 minutes. And considering he played well in both of those, I think we could feel pretty good about him continuing to play those minutes. Plus, it's a great matchup against OKC. The price hasn't really gone up yet. So, yes, I do like getting to Clint Capella. And let's see, when is the last time he played consecutive games over 30 minutes? It was February 13th and February 15th. It's been a while, but it looks like he's doing it right now. So I like getting to Capella. Is he somebody you have exposure to?
I have more Kongwu, and I have 2% Capella. I have 6% of Kongwu. I probably could get to less. Usually what I'll do is I'll kind of give a boost to the 8 p.m. Eastern time games when we're on this show, just so that I have some more swappability once we get off this show. And so I did give Atlanta a boost, and I still didn't find myself on to much Capella. I like the case that you made. It all sounded nice and well. 6,500, Trae Young. I mean, we've been hoping for this kind of all season long, and outside of that weird Knicks Detroit spot here in his recent run of games, he's been consistent. So if you can kind of put the blinders on to those two, 6,500, probably underpriced. But once again, I can say that about a lot of guys on this slate.
Yeah, but Clint Capella is one of those mid-range guys that I actually really do like a good amount.
Interesting. I might get to more than 2% of him in the next couple minutes.
How many minutes are you giving him?
Let me pull it up. Because again, I'm surprised I'm getting to any Okongwu because I gave him 22 minutes. Part of that is, they're double-digit spreads. So I give some of the starters in some of those spots a little bit less. I give him 26 minutes.
Yeah, that's really light to me. We've seen the minutes lately trend down for Okongwu and go up for Capella. I give Capella the same minutes he's played the last couple of games. So I'm looking at over 30 minutes from Clint Capella, and at 31 minutes, I think he's that guy again, particularly against this OKC front court.
You're not that guy, pal. You're
not that guy. You're not that guy, pal. All right. We are all caught up on questions, which is good because we're also at lock. Don't go anywhere, guys. Stick around. Hang out with Eric and I. We're going to be sweating the games. Most importantly, we're going to be giving you the best way to find value over on Prize Picks. The real best value is you sign up using our promo code Awesemo. You get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit. Also, you get yourself 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Now, we're going to talk about some of the tools we have over on the site that could help you identify not just good value on Prize Picks, but also at any sports book, and that is using OddsShopper. Free tool, free to use. We've got all our player prop projections using our NBA projections. We've got projected ROIs, projected win rates for basically every single player prop out there. So definitely something to take a look at. Eric, do you have Prize Picks pulled up, or OddsShopper for that matter?
Yes, I do. I have both.
All right. So let's try to identify some good stuff here. I'm pulling up Prize Picks right now.
I mean, I have the card built. There is a glaring thing that you need to do, and it has everything to do with this fantasy score that we have specifically. So I bet it a while ago. I think it's still available. Let me double check, because Justin Holiday is not somebody that I was really considering when I had the alarm bells go off for a second. It was because I think 17 fantasy points is a broken number for Justin Holiday if you're not going to have Jeremy Lamb on the floor there. I think there's an opportunity for him to play, more minutes than what people think. And I'm not saying that he's going to be a guy I get too much. It's an 11-game slate, even mid-20s. If you get that out of him, it's probably not enough. But 17 is a very, very low number. And I think here at Awesemo today, we have him projected on FanDuel, the correlation, FanDuel is kind of the fantasy point outlook you're looking at. 22.5 fantasy points. It's rare to find 5.5 fantasy point difference between any player, whether that's Luka or anybody else on Prize Picks. I think they just kind of forgot about adjusting him in the absence of Jeremy Lamb here. So I gave some adjustments to him. I was getting to around 24 fantasy points for Justin Holiday. I'm not getting to him really, but 17 is a pathetic number. And so I'm just going to be playing that in a lot of my cards on Prize Picks today.
Yeah, I could get behind that. And so you've placed some. Are we going to be building some Prize Picks cards, or you already got yours?
So I have a lot of them built already. So here are the plays that are my favorite. And OddsShopper agreed with Jordan Poole over 4 assists. Nikola Jokic was kind of just a 26.5 against the front court of Terry Taylor and Goga Batadze. As much as I like Goga today, Nikola Jokic is going to annihilate him and send him back to the other realm. So Jumo Kiki, 11.5 points. I like the over of that. I like Jayshawn Tate, 25 fantasy points we're looking at there for him. That was available before Şengün got ruled out. I think it's still the number there. I have him projected for 28.5. I don't completely love him for tournaments because, again, even 30 from him, I don't know if that's enough at that kind of a number. Now, he's going to be extremely popular, but I just kind of like playing him more on Prize Picks as like a flex play. So I got a couple of flex plays that I have going, like 4 and 5 piece plays that I have pieced together there. Jalen Green was available at 31 fantasy points earlier. I have him projected north of that. I thought that that was a good number. I really took advantage of some news before Şengün got ruled out and played a lot of these overs. And for some reason, the numbers have kind of stayed exactly the same. So Tate, 25 fantasy points, lock and load. Justin Holiday, 17 fantasy points, lock and load. I've paired that a lot with Jordan Poole over 4 assists.
Yeah, let me check because I kind of want to look at all of the Houston players now because, you know, that it's just something you brought to my attention now because it seems like the numbers are stale. If they haven't updated them, then it means that I'm really annoyed by something right now. Somebody's blasting music. I'm not thrilled.
Who might that be, Gregory?
The people that I rent to downstairs that are moving out very, very soon.
I called you by the wrong name.
Yeah. Gregory?
I just changed it to Gregory because it sounded fun.
Gregory or Gregory?
Gregory.
That's an interesting one. Does anybody call you by your middle name?
No, I'm Christopher, ironically enough. There we go.
Eric Christopher?
Eric Christopher.
One of my friend's dads, when he got mad at me growing up, when I would get in trouble with my friend, which was fairly frequently, he would call me Gregory Spencer and he'd grab my hair. So that's the only person who's ever called me by my middle name. But anyway, nobody's ever called me Gregory before. That would be a new one. Gregory would be new. Let's look at some of these other Houston player props because I'm kind of interested just in the fact that it seems like there might be some stale lines there. So Jayshawn Tate was one that you pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. What is Kevin Porter Jr. at?
Kevin Porter Jr. is 36. So that's up from the 35 it was at before. And it's basically flat now for me.
Houston. Looking if there's, how about over 17.5 points for Kevin Porter Jr.? I have him for nearly 20.
Who?
Kevin Porter Jr. Real life points.
Oh, yeah. I don't mind the over on that at all. I did some points plus rebounds plus assists with the Houston guys. I wasn't going to read all of my tickets on Prize Picks. I don't think people know. I really do like playing over here a lot. You don't have to worry about the juice. You don't have to worry about the numbers attached to the names. You can find some minus 150, minus 170 props that exist on sports books, and you parlay that in a flex play with like 3 other plays that are just like it. And you've kind of got a winning formula going. It's a really fun way to play. That's really the main benefit of not having to play. I'm in California, so I don't really have a choice to go between, a sports book or this. But even if you just have Prize Picks available to you in your state, or if you have Prize Picks as well as sports books available to you in your state, there is such a strong case to be made for playing at Prize Picks. Makes it very simple. You're able to basically take all of the fantasy projections we have at Awesemo and find plays like Justin Holiday, 17, Jayshawn Tate, 25, stuff like that can be real positive winners going forward that aren't going to be lines you can find on a sports book. Fantasy Score is not there.
Got a couple more super chats here. First one from Larry Banks. With Love not starting, does he still look good? And for the love of God, Eric, do not start breaking out to sing California Love. But Larry Banks,
do you believe in love after lock?
I didn't mean to sing a different song with love in it. But
because the game has already locked. You can't play Kevin Love.
Unfortunately,
anymore,
Tyler
no.
left. If I had the ability to, I would absolutely have just muted your microphone. But there's no easier name to be able to come up with song parodies for than Kevin
I'm
Love.
All out of love. He's already locked now. There's no way to play. Screw you, Tyler.
Oh, that is true. That game already locked. It's 7. Here's the easiest way I can tell. All right. So has he started? Has the game started and has he already checked in for Moses Brown? Like that would be a good way for me to say, does he look good?
Yeah, it's not ideal. That would not be ideal. How much Moses Brown did you get to? I didn't really get to any.
Around 10%.
Okay, I got to 4.
I didn't know what to do with his minutes. I didn't know what to do with Kevin Love's minutes either, but the field wasn't playing these guys. I think I saw Moses Brown's 2% owned on FanDuel.
I have more than that on FanDuel.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. Let me pull him up on FanDuel. I got to 9%.
Yeah, so we're around the same numbers then.
Yep.
Right,
I didn't get to him. I anticipated when I got a min guy on FanDuel that wasn't a Houston dude to get some kind of swappability there and also not Garuba. I thought I would play more of him than I did, but I just can't give up the center spot with Goga and Jokic that much.
Yeah, so I mean, there's nothing we could really do that's actionable information for Larry Banks because the game is already locked, and he just left us the super chat. I still think Kevin Love's a really strong tournament play because at least coming into the slate, we didn't have very much ownership projected for him. So, I mean, I think Kevin Love, if you play him in cash games, that's super risky, a little riskier than I would like for me personally. But for tournaments, I don't think this changes his ceiling. It just changes his odds of reaching that ceiling. We have a super chat here from Greg Smith. Hey guys, I am a FanDuel employee, and our last NBA slate, I'm an 8th overall out of 1,400 employees. Top 5 get paid for overall standings with a single bullet entry lineup. All right, so we've got a company contest here, and out of the 1,400 employees, he has to come in top 5. So with that in mind, I assume he probably wants to differentiate a little bit because he's an 8th right now.
Yes, I'm assuming so. That's the thing. So let me just get this all because it's $19.99. You've earned yourself some time on this show. So
his lineup, by the way, is Mitchell, Jones, Luka, Keon, OG, LeVert, Pokusevski, Martin Jr., Jokic.
I don't mind anything. I mean, Anunoby, I didn't really think about him. I'm assuming he's been eternally underpriced, but everybody's underpriced on FanDuel.com. So it's not a surprise to me here. Congratulations. Let's get you a W. Yeah, 8.5%. He was projecting out really well here at Awesemo. He's got a 30-point projection. I only ended up with like 12%. Well, that's actually more than I was expecting when I clicked on it. So 12%. I do like him a little bit on this slate. So I think that that's a good tournament lineup. Like if you're trying to finish first, though, I think you have to make some pivots off it. I think you have to get off of Mitchell. I think you should get off of.
Here's what's hard though, also, because he left us at the time he left us the shallow. He already has some players locked in.
It's true. Let's see which one. So here's the thing: we've got
LeVert is locked.
Yes. So LeVert is in that lineup no matter what. I think you get off Poku as well, which sounds shitty because he's a smash play. But again, we're trying to win you this thing. And Pokusevski's I've got to imagine, like this is almost like a cash game format for some of these guys. And if you look at those top 2, 3, 4 lineups, I bet they're going to be very cashy. You guys work at FanDuel. You know what you're doing. Pokusevski feels like a guy that people will definitely have. He's probably going to be one of the highest owned pieces out of there. Now, I do not want to part with Jones. I do not want to part with Luka. I think Keon Johnson you can get off of as well, even though I think he's a decent play for tournaments. Just too high owned. So like, let's get a little bit off the board here. If I'm looking at Houston, like Garuba is sub 5%. He's 3,500. If you want to get off Martin Jr., we both like as well. But if I'm going to find the savings there, I can pay up on Keon to somebody else in that Portland spot. I'm curious what you could land on if you got off of Martin Jr. and went Garuba and then played somebody else other than Keon. I think that's the quick 2v2 that makes sense to me if I'm trying to finish top 5 in this thing.
I have this is a general strategy question also that I want to know from Greg to another Greg. Because I assume right now that he is still watching and hasn't tuned us out yet. Greg, and also why like 75% of people in the YouTube chat named Greg right now, including one of the people.
There's a lot of Erics in this bitch too. There are a lot of Erics.
A lot of Gregs and Erics. It is a little. It's a
little disconcerting. Yeah.
How many points back are you from 5th? Right, because that makes a total difference. If he's 3 points back, That's way different than if he's like 20 points back, because you need to be really contrarian if you're looking at like 20, 30 points you need to make up on the field.
Brady McPherson, poor guy. Eric is about to lose it for you. No, I'm not. I'm talking through the general strategy. Shut your pie hole. Just take your fingers and remove them from the keyboard and your you-know-what region. Like, seriously.
No. I would say he should remove his fingers from the keyboard, cut them off, and that's where he puts the fingers.
Ooh, yeah, better idea from Greg. Greg,
Yeah,
I like your thinking. You're a good friend.
There we go. All right,
Craig, my friend Craig.
your best friend Gregory. So actually, I think that's another reason I should transition to a Craig or a Gregory, because that's something we don't have a lot of in the YouTube chat.
I demand a Gregory. Do you get that reference?
No.
Okay, never mind. Somebody's going to have it in YouTube chat in 5 seconds.
He has Jokic locked. He has Luka locked. There's not really a lot he could do when he already has Jokic, Luka, and LeVert locked, but we'll give him a contrarian play to swap to. Just, Greg, follow up with us and let us know how many points you are back.
Yes.
It's going to be important. If it's only a couple points, just write out the optimal lineup. Super chat from Ben Anthony. Eric is so funny. Good looking guy. You too, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. You're the best. There we go. Oh yeah.
Thank you for the super chat, Ben.
How you doing?
I'm looking through. I'm just looking through the YouTube chat to make sure that we haven't gotten any update yet from Greg on how many points back he is. Either way, though, like I said, there's not too many spots they can make pivots to at this point, considering that he needs to save salary when he has Luka and Jokic locked into his lineup. We just got news that Jaren Jackson Jr. is officially listed as questionable. Is going to be a game time decision. Is there anything that massively changes for you if Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't end up playing?
Not massive, just because Brandon Clark can kind of fill up enough minutes, and I don't think he's fantasy viable for this slate. Steven Adams has kind of been playing the same amount of minutes here. I don't think I want to play any Kyle Anderson on this slate. I tried to play him the other night. That was just, it was kind of a gut check that maybe I don't want to try to make that a thing once again. I assume Kyle Anderson would continue to start in the absence of Jaren Jackson Jr. So that's the one positive. He's 4,200, so he's a little bit cheaper on FanDuel than we've seen, even than the 4,400. But I don't think I want to get carried away playing. I had like 25% the other night, and it was a flat out mistake.
So we just got a follow-up. Greg is 18 fantasy points out of 5th place.
So you're a ways back.
Yeah, that's a good amount of fantasy points to make up. And I assume you're playing players that everybody else is playing.
Yep. And that's the thing. All of these guys are great plays, but they're not great plays together when you're trying to move up the board in a certain way. Like, if you have the perfect mix and nobody else has that perfect mix, sweet. But what really is going to make up 18 points for you is having a strong pivot off a 2v2 that you're going to be the only person that has. Like, that's the way to really look at this and find really what those low owned pieces are going to be. I like going back to this. I mean, for me, KJ Martin, I think is a good play, and we're both very much on him today, but Garuba, I've already said, I think there's a chance he starts. He's 3,500 right now. He's sub 5%. Even if he starts, even if you're playing your FanDuel people, he's a better fantasy point producer in his limited sample size than KJ Martin is. If we project him for about the same minutes, they're going to have about the same fantasy outcome. I think I embrace that volatility. Go to Garuba, use that $400, and I would upgrade to something over Keon Johnson, mainly because I think he's a good play, but I think his ceiling's a little bit capped compared to some of the other guys you can get to.
Yeah, and let's see what I'm just looking through because I see he added me in the chat. Greg Smith, 18. Okay, just to say that he's 18.
Joe Kovacs. Eric looks a little like Steve Mariucci. Somebody brought that up in our group chat the other day.
It was also Joey Corman. One of the better lookalikes I can remember. You do look a lot like Steve Mariucci.
I'm going to be Steve Mariucci in 30 years. That's a weird thing to say.
Tyler, can you pull up a picture of Steve Mariucci? You'll see it. Like you'll Google him and you'll immediately see he looks like Eric. I'll wait for Tyler to smile and then I'll know that he's found the picture.
Yeah, I mean, he's older than me, Tyler. He has gray hair. It's different. What is he? I'm eternally. Oh yeah. Okay. We got the thumbs up from Tyler. That's surprising. Tyler's actually animated today. Hello, Tyler. How are you? Oh, okay.
Is he got? Do we have the picture on the screen?
Yep.
Yeah,
He looks a
he's on the
little jokerish on that one. Yeah, there's a number of these. I mean, he's really got this like fluff. My dad's hair is a little similar to this. Like my dad has like those gray waves. He's had it like going back his entire life. He has just like a really solid head of hair that doesn't even look real. It's very much more like Steve Mariucci than mine is. So shout out Bill Lindquist, my dad. There you go.
Look at that. Yeah, that's Eric right there. That's Eric.
Is that Ryan
All
Seacrest?
day.
No, that's not Ryan Seacrest. I don't look like that little weasel.
Do you look like your dad?
A little bit. I look like my dad's brother.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he passed away a while ago, but when I was young, people were like, "Oh, you look exactly like your dad's brother did when he was young."
I'm just looking at the screen.
Steve
That's a
Mariucci,
good. That's a good look like. It's a good look
pretty
like.
good look like.
Listen, there's worse people they could say you look like.
What does Adam get? Dustin
like,
May.
Think about what people say. Think about what people say about Adam and Laffy. Steve Mariucci's a normal.
Who does Laffy get? I don't really know a lookalike for Laffy.
What's the
Tyler is Adam, or is what's his name? Justin Long. Like there's no doubt about it. Justin Long for Tyler.
Yeah, no, Laffy is no, what wasn't it Davis Bertans for Laffy? Wasn't that it was Davis
It's so
Bertans.
bad that it's good. You know what I mean? Like it's
he's
really not good.
He's Davis Burt. It's because you could, if you're stretching it, you could understand the lookalike. They don't actually look alike, but if you're trying to make a cartoonish kind of comp, you could see how it comes.
Totally.
Let's sweat some of the games right now. Also, guys, don't forget, show is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you're signing up at Prize Picks for the first time, use the promo code Awesemo. Get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit. Also get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Also do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Time for some live sweats here. First, some key players. Luka Doncic, first 6 minutes of the game. A little bit of a slow start for Luka. 4 points, 2 assists, and a rebound. Over on the Cleveland side of the game, Kevin Love is in like at the first whistle for Moses Brown. Moses Brown, not bad points per minute fantasy production. He played 4 minutes, put up 2 points, 3 boards, and then Kevin Love came in immediately. This looks like we're going to see like 14 or 16 minutes out of Moses Brown. We're just going to get like 32 from Kevin Love or something like that.
Yeah, and that's why ownership matters so much. What did he end up on FanDuel in the $9.99? Let me find it, because I know I had a number of lineups with him here. Because I
love his Davis Bertans.
Jokic up to 15.2, leader on the slate, 8-2-1-1. How you doing? What a smash! Like you just play all the Jokic and all the land. It's just absurd.
I'm going to shout this out one more time. There are some sites that still have it as a pick'em between Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic for MVP. The line's moving though. I pointed this out yesterday. There was a straw poll that ESPN ran. They took 100, I believe it was 100 writers. Some of them are going to be MVP voters. They did a ballot on who they'd vote for MVP. Jokic won over Embiid in a landslide. Jokic should be the favorite to win MVP right now. Some places have that as the case, not every place. So once again, I think we should be getting on Jokic here. Doesn't hurt that he's off to 8 points, 2 assists, a steal, and a rebound start here against the Pacers in the first 4 minutes of the game.
Jokic just had a take foul. What the hell? Why would he do that ever?
Oh, he's going to crush today anyway.
So tilting. Oh, yeah. No, he
crush.
just smashed. He just got a block and then a board, and then Anderson took a personal foul. 8-2-2 already, and a steal and a block.
He's the man. He is the man. On the Pacers side of the game, Terry Taylor's off to a decent start with 3 points and 2 rebounds. We got 2 points of rebound and an assist for Justin Anderson. Not too much else doing. The Magic Wizards game, which is a game that outside of Kristaps Porzingis, I didn't think had too much that was crazy appealing, and he is off to a very slow start. 2 points, a board, and a block. Are we panicking about Kristaps Porzingis, Mr. Mariucci?
No, he's got 9.2. I'm looking at on
FanDuel.
FanDuel.
Okay, then I guess that's more updated than the NBA.
5-1-1. Yeah, it honestly, NBA app. I use ESPN more because it's just quicker. They do a pretty good job of updating, or they've at least gotten better than they've been in the past. And then, I'm looking at FanDuel right now, 9.2 for Kristaps. He's fine.
Somebody, Eric looks like a younger version of Snoop Dogg. It's just such a dumb, stupid lookalike type thing that it made me laugh.
People are cool. I mean, Snoop Dogg's the man. Let's be serious. He's been like, we have cancel culture that exists, and Snoop Dogg has not even come close to getting canceled because he's the fucking man. He's the man. Snoop Dogg is the man.
Tyler, can we try this? Can you put up a picture of Snoop Dogg next to Eric? I just want to know for sure. Maybe because maybe you look alike. I don't know.
No, that's a dumb.
You've been playing a lot of golf. You're
bit.
tan right now. Who's to say?
Yeah. Do we have a picture? Can I be Martha Stewart next to Snoop Dogg? That'd be cool. Because they are. Which one? That's a friendship I would.
Do you think you look more like Martha Stewart or Snoop Dogg?
I mean, Martha Stewart, I would think, but I don't know. Snoop Dogg is the man. LA legend.
I don't really know a young Snoop Dogg. I haven't looked at young Snoop Dogg in a while.
Are you telling me to send a sign? It's the man.
You know, actually, the picture with the afro. If anybody, I think I'm the closest lookalike there.
Yeah, you've got those gentle eyes.
It's me in high school.
He's got those gentle eyes as a kid. Like Snoop Dogg really was the man.
Yeah, that's me in high school right there. Same hair. That's why it goes over my head. By the way, I just saw some more. Jokic is going to absolutely destroy the slate. 8-3, 3-1-1 in 7 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a free square, and people don't want to play him. I have 75.8% on DK. Oh my Lord. Yeah, that's not good. We're not.
Look at that.
I think Snoop Dogg is a legend. He's a legend. Look at Greg here.
I don't even know which. I to be honest, and this
that
is
is so great.
I can't even tell which one's which.
So good.
I can't tell which is which. If you mixed up the pictures, I couldn't tell. Oh, you know what actually gives it away? Is that one says Snoop Dogg over his head, the other one says Gregory Ehrenberg, and where I went to high school.
Oh, Gregory Ehrenberg it is now.
Greg Ehrenberg. That was me in high school.
Sweep pro. Yeah, no, this picture is just legendary. I mean, you kind of self-proclaimed that it was hilarious, and it truly is. But now, Tyler, the best thing he's ever done in his history of Awesemo is make your picture the background of your actual picture you have in the background. You know, because otherwise it looks like you're in military confinement, like you're just at your bunk, you know, using your laptop. But when he puts the picture up there, I'm like, oh, Greg's at home. Greg's at home.
Look out, because my dad is coming to visit for the 4th birthday celebration for my sister-in-law this weekend. I think we can hang up some pictures with him. I've got a lot of pictures and memorabilia in my office. I think it's time to start hanging some of that stuff up.
A lot of pictures of you in high school behind you.
Oh, are you going to put the same one up for all? Like, I don't have that many pictures of me from high school for you to hang up.
I mean, if you could optimally get me, you know, freshman through senior year, I can just rotate them throughout the room a few times, but we'll make it work.
By the way, to Gerardo's comment in the YouTube chat, I could guarantee you that was not the case. I will guarantee you that was not the case with all that hair. Not the case at all. All right, we've got a couple minutes left to go here, Eric. Let's try to find one more prize pick prop to give to the people on the way.
I was gonna say, I gave a lot of picks to the people on prize picks today. I hope you were paying attention because I feel pretty good about all of them. Let's build out the card. We've got 3 minutes. Let's build it out. I'm going back to this and I'm going to post it because I've already played enough of it. Why not play more of it? I'm going to make my guy Justin Holiday over 17 fantasy points. I understand it's not a guy that I want to play in DFS. I have like maybe 3% of him on FanDuel, but 17 is a very, 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 very low number. Give me that. That is the smash. That is my play in. You have one, and then chat comes up with one.
So what was your official pick? Holiday?
Justin Holiday, 17 fantasy points. Give me the over.
Let's see. What do I want to go with? It's a lot of the ones that project well are from games that have already started.
I mean, these Houston guys seem pretty low too, but we're already invested big time in them in DFS purposes. Jason Tate up to 26 since I've been talking, by the way, 26 fantasy points. That's still too low.
Right. I've got one I like. I've got one I like.
Ready.
DeJounte Murray over 7.5 rebounds.
Alrighty. Smash. Oh, that's a great number to get. That's a great number.
Especially considering where the Spurs are in the standings right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to probably run Murray as many minutes as he can handle for these last couple weeks of the season. Like we brought up, who would have thought they were going to be in the that they were going to be in the play-in picture?
Jokic has 28 fantasy points. There are 8 minutes into this game.
Light work.
Pacers. I try not to do too much of like, oh, this team against this team or like this team against centers. But like when you have Terry Taylor out there right now and Jalen Smith, it makes a lot of sense that Jokic is just committing a felony in 35 states.
Oh, and I almost forgot. Another thing we have to give to the people, the free bet of the day. Go follow out Awesemo Bets on Twitter. And we have a free bet for the day. It is from Steve Buzzard, under 10.5 assists from Chris Paul. That is a number that can be had. Under 10.5 assists from Steve Buzzard. Go check that out.
Love it.
What was the final piece of the Prize Picks card?
So I don't know. We had a chat. Chat has to come up with one. They said, what is Poole's points plus rebounds plus assists? I like Poole. I like the assist number that we got on him. 4 is what that was at. I mean, I'd be okay clicking on that, but I think points plus rebounds, assists for him. What did that end up at? Let's do it. Poole.
I have around 4.5 assists for Jordan Poole. I like the over there.
32.5. Yes. All right, let's do it. That's the last one. 32.5.
Should we get to 4?
Justin Holiday over 17 fantasy points, over 7.5 rebounds, over 32.5 for Jordan Poole. I'm going to post the ticket on it. Any profits I make, I will split with half. If we get a lucky user, we have been screwed by the hook 2 weeks in a row. Robert Williams, half a rebound. Can't remember what it was last week, but it was brutal.
Half a point. Disturbing losses in terms of these 3-pick parlays. So we are going to fire this one up. This one's going to get there. It's going to get there. I like to focus on my bad. Some people like to focus on their bad losses. I celebrate my bad wins, the ones that I have no business winning that ultimately hit. That's the positive outlook on this. Guys, thank you very much for watching. On the way out, hit the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be back tomorrow. Hope you guys have the best of luck today. Pay attention to all the news. We still got Valanciunas questionable, a whole bunch of other guys. If you have any questions, hit up myself on Twitter, hit up Eric, because this seems like a slate where there's going to be more stuff coming out. Steve Mariucci and myself, we're out tonight.